All right, it is 8:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us. I know that you guys are all very, very busy, and we really appreciate all of you joining us. My name is Mike Moe. I'm the Director of Tourism Development and Strategic Partnership for the Washington Tourism Alliance, and this is our first destination development workshop in wine country, but this is only the first of many more to come. And so first, I'd like to introduce Dan Moore. He's our facilitator today. He's been with WTA for a long time as a board member. He started out owning his own business, Evergreen Escapes, a hiking and outdoor recreation business. And then he moved into consulting with Pandion and has done a lot of destination work and tour operation all over the world. And we're very happy to have him here today to help us with our introductory workshop. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike, so much for inviting me to do this work with you. Something that had been building up for many years in terms of trying to get funding for statewide marketing and just all the amazing things that will come from having a fully funded statewide tourism entity. And I'm really excited that destination development is one of the first initiatives that Washington Tourism Alliance took on. And thanks to all of you for being a part of that process up to this point. And as Mike said, this is the beginning of a lot of great work that I think will bring a lot of benefit to the state and including your region. Just quickly, I run a small consulting and training business, and I do work where I do training and development in different places around the globe. I really like the idea of destination development and bringing folks together and having them figure out what's the best strategy for all the businesses and organizations. And this is what I think maybe our 7th of these workshops, Mike. And so I've been helping out get this destination development program off the ground with Washington Tourism Alliance. And so far, I think, Mike, you'll agree that we've learned a ton just about what's going on throughout the state and just different strategies. And so for me, it's a great privilege just to have this opportunity to learn from you all. So again, thanks for allowing me to be a part of this work. In terms of the plan today, as Mike says, we've got a full morning and you all have lives and jobs and things like that. So feel free to duck in and out if you need to. But just know that some of this talking head stuff that can get more challenging, especially in the virtual setting. We've got several small breakout sessions throughout the morning where you'll get a chance to connect a little bit more intimately with a smaller group of people. Maybe they're people you know and work with, maybe some of them you've never met before, but regardless, it's a really, we've found so far doing these workshops that some of that small group breakout has been really inspiring and provided some incredibly creative ideas and insightful ideas. A key motivation for today is to learn about what's going on at the state level with Washington Tourism Alliance, as well as within the region of wine country. There are several jurisdictions and organizations that are working in this region, and we really are excited for you all to get connected. And you know, many of you are connected already, but just make sure that everyone's on the same page about what's going on and how they can contribute. So in terms of what are the key takeaways, so connect the community to tourism assets and resources, including the Washington Tourism Alliance. So again, those are your DMOs within the region. Those are maybe your chambers of commerce and other organizations that are doing the work. The idea is to spark some ideas about possible paths to take to build or to grow or enhance tourism, however you want to look at this, because obviously tourism is already happening and your goals may not be to necessarily grow, but maybe to build upon or improve or to, so there's lots of different paths that you might all want to take, and hopefully this workshop will help inspire and plant some seeds for things you want to work on later on. There will be some conversations about identifying assets that the region has developed already has either developed or undeveloped that you are interested in pursuing. And especially, I think this is a key aspect and something that's been very useful, I know, for Washington Tourism Alliance, is document some of the gaps and needs that could be addressed by the Washington Tourism Alliance in future workshops or grant programs or other destination development work. So let's, so this is a conversation about what is referred to as wine country region, and lots of reasons why that's the top line theme for the name here, but we all know that there's a tremendous amount of things in addition to wine going on in this region. But I first want to just acknowledge the fact that we are all on traditional lands wherever we are. I happen to be in Minnesota visiting my family here. So even though I live in Seattle, which is the traditional lands of the Duwamish people, right now I'm in Minnesota, and I'd like to just do a brief land acknowledgement because I'm very thankful for the fact that I grew up in Minnesota, and which is the traditional land of the Dakota people, and also the Anishinaabe people are longtime residents of the state of what is now called Minnesota. So if on your own, if you would like to acknowledge the land that you are on, because it is traditional land as well. And I think especially in the tourism industry, this is really important for us to acknowledge that so much of the scenery, the beauty, the culture, the stories, the history, as well as the present day is directly attributed to the indigenous people of our lands. In terms of knowing who is here, this is also a key takeaway from this meeting. We're very excited for you all to connect to each other and to reconnect. It's been a long year and a lot of interesting challenges that we've all faced, and the challenges have been disproportionate, I think, throughout the state. Some regions have done very, very well, even during COVID, and some, of course, have struggled and suffered even more. And I think as an industry, coming together to work in that way is going to be key. So I'm going to ask Mike to take over here and just call on folks. I'm going to quit sharing my screen so you can see each other and give you a chance to introduce who you are. What if you are representing an organization or a company, or you're part of a government agency, you can say that, but we're really excited for concerned citizens as well. So don't feel like you have to be here representing anybody. You could just be here because you are a resident of this region and want to contribute. So, and of course, we have a significant amount of people here. So please just keep it brief, say your name and the organization, and then we'll move on. Mike, can I allow you to do the very hard work of figuring out who is on your screen in front of you?
Yes, I will. Just so you know, names move around a bit. So just if I miss you, I'll give you a chance at the end. But I'll try to get to everybody. So first up, Susan Brown.
Hi, I am Susan Brown. I am event coordinator for Owen Row Winery, and I deal with all special events and visitation. And I've got a big production team behind me today, as you can maybe hear. So it's kind of noisy. I'll try to move it outside. But very interested in how to develop Yakima as a tourism site. I think it's an unsung hero. I come from a resort town, Hood River, Oregon, so know kind of what that looks like and dealt with that throughout my entire life. Tourism balance between tourism and locals. So excited for this workshop. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, Susan. Up next, Dan Thiessen.
Good morning, everybody. Dan Thiessen, managing partner for Walla Estate Company, Crossbuck Brewing, and the announcement today of Basil Cellars transitioning to Yellowhawk Resorts, part of the Revers Club group of properties, which also includes El Gaucho, Aqua, and Heirloom over in the Seattle market. And just excited to see what we have going on and be a part of this deal. So thank you.
Thank you. Dave Blanford.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Blanford. I'm Executive Director of the Washington Tourism Alliance. Really glad you all are with us today.
All right, thank you. Admin. I'm like Ron Burgundy. I'm just reading what I see here, guys. Okay, We'll give you a chance there to come back. Guy Glazier.
Hello, I'm in Walla Walla. I'm with a local tour company called Inquisitors. I also sit on the board of WTA, here for any number of reasons. Here's my cat coming into the picture. I'm looking to get outside. Oh, there's the cat's butt. Hey, it's all right. Anyways, just excited to be here. Thanks, and you can move it on, Mike.
Mark's iPhone.
I'm Mark Blotz. I'm the general manager and partner of the Clover Island Inn, which is a locally owned 150-room hotel on the Columbia River in Kennewick. And it's not actually Mark's iPhone. Mark Blotz is my last name, but it might come up Mark's iPhone.
All right, thanks, Mark. Let's see, Robert Harrington.
Good morning. I'm Bob Harrington. I'm the director for WSU's School of Hospitality Business Management. So my office is primarily in the Tri-Cities campus, but I'm in charge of the whole system-wide. So Pullman, Vancouver, Everett, Global Campus, and then also our joint program that we have in Switzerland. I'm excited to be here today and find out what you all are doing and let you know we'll be happy to assist in any way. We have both undergraduate programs in hospitality business, wine and beverage business management, and senior living management, as well as all the way through PhD programs. So if we can get involved in some sort of future research needs or anything of interest to our students or faculty or other types of programs, happy to be part of that. And I do have to brag for a minute. Our program was just ranked #2 nationally in the most recent rankings for 2021 and 7th globally. So we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you.
Cougs.
Cougs.
We will definitely be putting you to work, Bob, and all of your amazing students.
Great.
Amy Johnson.
Hi, good morning. Amy Johnson. My husband and I, Kyle Johnson, own Purple Star Winery in Benton City. We're the owners and winemakers here, and we love to partner with our local tourism association. So excited to hear what we can do.
All right, thank you, Amy. Best Western Plus.
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Herman, and I am the Sales and Marketing Director for the Best Western Plus at Thana, and I'm excited to be part of your group. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you. Betsy McCann.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Betsy McCann. I'm the Development Director at the Yakima Symphony Orchestra, which is why you see in back of me the fellow. I have been working with the orchestra for quite a long time. However, my first career was in the wine industry. I attended WSU, did my graduate work there at a time when the wine industry was really, really young. When I moved to Yakima to begin working in the industry, it was 1986. We only had 19 wineries in the state. It's been amazing to watch it grow. And in our work with the symphony, we do, I would say, regular, perhaps daily collaborations with the wine industry. It's a big part of our focus in the community, and really glad to be able to participate in this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Buck Taft.
I'm Buck Taft. I'm the director of the Tri-Cities Airport, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Buck. Commissioner Mullen.
Yes, good morning. I am Commissioner of Franklin County and glad to be here. So I'll let you get on, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm really happy you're here. David Rogers.
I'm David Rogers, Executive Director of the Yakima Symphony. I work with Betsy. Since we're not a venue, we often get overlooked in tourism efforts, but we are a fully professional orchestra, and at this point, I think the largest performing arts organization in Central Washington. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to collaborate.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Dalen Gibbard.
I'm Dalen Gibbard, Director of Sales and Services with Visible Wall.
Thank you. Days In. Okay, we'll come. Diana Thibodeau.
Hi, I'm Diane Thibodeau. I'm the Director of Operations for the Washington Tourism Alliance. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Holiday Inn.
Good morning, I'm Juliana from the Holiday Inn downtown Yakima. I'm the GM here and I'm excited to be in this program.
Thank you. Okay, this one's very vague. Hotel. Okay, Jennifer Martinez.
I'm Jennifer Martinez. I am the marketing manager for Yakima Valley Tourism, and we sure are excited to continue developing tourism of all types here in wine country.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer Mokert.
Hi, good morning. I'm with Lem Hotels, and we have 2 hotels in wine country, the Yakima Comfort Suites and Walla Walla Holiday Inn Express. So I'm excited to get to know more of you.
Thank you. Kathy Cortembos.
Hi, coming at you from Pennsylvania now, but missing my vineyards. I'm the Director of Hospitality and DTC for Hedges Family Estate.
Thank you, Kathy. Kim Sugar.
Morning, I'm Kim Schugert. I'm the Senior Vice President with Visit Tri-Cities. And as I look around the gallery here, I've worked with a number of you over the years, and I'm just excited about doing more collaboration amongst our tourism community.
Thank you, Kim. Cole Mdina.
Good morning. I'm the CEO of the Blue Mountain Community Foundation based in Walla Walla and serving surrounding counties. I'm here because I'm always interested in developing partnerships between philanthropy and tourism and economic development.
Thank you, Cole. Chris Kirby.
Hi, I'm Chris Kirby. I'm the National Park Service Superintendent of Manhattan Project National Historical Park. I'm coming to you today from Denver, the ancestral lands of the Arapaho and Cheyenne Nations. And as you all know, the National Park Service has the Hanford site of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park up in the Tri-Cities. And the community and hospitality organizations are really, really important partners for us to do our jobs, basically. So we consider ourselves part of the larger community, and we consider kind of the whole Tri-Cities area part of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park in theory. So great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Christine Bono.
I'm Christine Bono. I'm the General Manager of Tertulia Cellars in Walla Walla. It's an estate winery, and I work with the Walla Walla Marketing Committee with the Wine Alliance.
Thank you. Kyle Tarbot.
I'm Kyle Tarbot with the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce, here to learn a little bit more about how we can help some of our members who don't understand tourism super well, and help them realize that they're in the tourism business. A lot of them don't realize that they depend on income from tourists, so trying to help them become a little more savvy in that area.
Great, thank you. Matt Lyons.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Lyons. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization called TREAD. We work in the outdoor rec industry, and we've recently partnered with WTA, and I'll be presenting on that in a little bit.
Thank you, Matt. Michael Novakovich.
Morning, everyone. Michael Novakovich, President and CEO of Visit Tri-Cities and Washington Tourism Alliance board member. Super excited to see many of my 46 board members on here and our regional partners, but the broader region. Super exciting to see all of you investing in development of wine country. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Michelle Thana.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Thana. I'm the new Director of Marketing at WTA, and I'm based in Vancouver, Washington, so just a little west of most of you, on the traditional lands of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, as well as the Cowlitz people, who are both still very active in the community today.
Thank you. Rosanna Sharp.
Good morning. I'm the Executive Director of the Reach Museum and also a board member of the Washington State Arts Commission, which has a program initiative based around creative districts. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Robert Hansen.
Hello, I'm Robert Hansen, the Executive Director of Visit Walla Walla and the Walla Walla Valley Wine Alliance. Thanks for putting on the workshop today.
Thank you. Sarah's laptop.
Yeah, to step away for a guest. Her name is Sarah Purdy and manages the Best Western Plus Hotel and the Hotel Y in Yakima.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Stephanie Button.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Button. I'm the Executive Director for the Historic Downtown Kennewick Partnership here in beautiful downtown Kennewick. We are also working with our partners to apply for a creative district here in the downtown to celebrate all the many creative industries and creative occupations in our downtown region. We are a revitalizing, growing space, and we're excited to be a part of the tourism opportunities in the regional Tri-Cities and the wine country region.
Thank you. Will McKay.
Will McKay, Benton County Commissioner as of January 1st. First time rodeo.
All right, thank you. Donovan Snow. Okay.
He actually is the general manager of the Comfort Suites in Yakima. He probably had to step away.
Okay, and just getting under the wire, John Cooper.
Hey, everyone.
John Cooper is the Executive Director of Visit Yakima Valley. Sorry, John, put you on the spot there. All right, did I miss anybody? I know that was, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Deborah Bernard, Barnard Griffin Winery. Been around since 1983, so I guess I'm the ancient wine person on your group. We have seen this rodeo a lot, and we're very excited about trying to grow our tourism opportunities. And we just opened this year in Vancouver another tasting room. So to our Vancouver representative, we're very excited to be there on the waterfront and excited to see more tourism here in the Tri-Cities. I also sit on Michael's Visit Tri-Cities board.
Great, thank you so much. Diane Howard. Sorry, I missed you there, Diane.
No, apologies. I was between my car and my office. Good morning. I'm Diane Howard, Executive Director for the Port of Benton. It's nice to see so many of my colleagues on the line today. And hello to John Cooper. Worked with him a long time ago, and it's great to be back. So I'm an Executive Director for the Port of Benton. I also sit on Visit Tri-Cities Board. Port District's 2/3 of Benton County, including the Clore Center, History of Wine and Prosser, as well as our work with the National Park and the Reach and the USS Triton Submarine Sail Park in North Richland. Thank you and good morning, everyone.
Thank you. What an amazing group we have here. This is fantastic. It's just a wide breadth of the tourism industry in your region. So this is great. All right, back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Mike. And yes, amazing group of people. We're going to be talking later on just about some case studies and some ideas about successful destination development work. And a key aspect is making sure you have a diverse group of people at the table, from businesses, from nonprofits, from governments, and just the very quick overview, seeing from all of you, it seems like we do have a lot of different parties represented here, and that's extremely important to just make sure that this process moves in the right direction and that people learn from each other. So thank you for taking the time today and making this a priority in what is probably normally a busy time of the day for you. So it actually isn't back to me yet because it's going to introduce David Blandford, the Executive Director of the Washington Tourism Alliance. And I'm excited for you all to just get an update on all the incredible work that Washington Tourism Alliance has been doing in the last couple of years, as well as the last couple of months even. So David and Mike, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mike. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Really glad to be talking and brainstorming with you. It's a real important topic at a real important time in our industry. And to echo what a few others said, this is not my first rodeo with tourism. I've been in this industry in the state for the better part of 3 decades. Working mostly with Visit Seattle, but often across the state, as Visit Seattle is known to do. And also earlier in my career, working really extensively with the old state tourism office. I actually had a contract to run press trips around the state for them, help them develop photo libraries, things like that, and then work very collegially on some marketing and communications and programmatic things throughout the years with that tourism office. This month is 10 years since the legislature cut the tourism office, and 10 years since really our statewide industry was thrown into a crisis and had to take it upon itself to find a way to find money to fund a statewide tourism marketing program. We, the industry, decided collectively we needed to work together. We decided that we needed to fund that endeavor for our industry to be successful and to drive economic impact. We needed to have a umbrella marketing effort for state tourism. We also decided, very decidedly, that this should be an industry-driven effort. So we determined that we did not want to go back to a state agency per se, but rather the tourism industry, the private side, should really drive this effort. And so that moment in time launched what would be 7 years of solid advocacy year over year to try and strike some kind of legislation that would allow us to proceed with that. We looked at many different models. Ultimately, what we came up with was a private public matching program. It's 2/3 to the two for the private side, and then the one is the general funds that are unlocked through those funds in kind and such. That was 2018 when the legislature approved that, and Governor Inslee signed it into legislation that enabled our office to begin to reshape itself, to really build a true DMO for the state, a destination marketing office. We began very quickly. The contract, I think, was signed in late 2018. So we had about a year before the pandemic hit to really start building, taking in some funds gradually and reshaping what the office needed to be. So you can imagine every aspect needed to be recreated, from photo and video libraries to staffing, policies, procedures, everything that you would expect. Boy, that iron curtain of COVID-19 really came down about a year later and was challenging, as it was for all of you, I know. For us, I think we made a very quick decision that we couldn't stop the trajectory, that despite a global pandemic, we had to push through it, continue building, knowing full well that when we got on the other side of the pandemic and reopening resumed, that we would have a tremendous need for recovery. And sure enough, we do. The U.S. Travel Association estimates a 3 to 5 year recovery period for the industry, different segments needing different lengths of time. The overall impact 10 times worse than the terrorism events of 9/11, and those were pretty significant for our industry. So now is the time that we build, that we continue to shape this effort that was created by this industry. You may have noticed that we're attracting funding on top of the base funding. We have a contract with the Port of Seattle, for example, for recovery programming. That is about $1.5 million. And then we just were successful in achieving a budget proviso for the 2021 through 23 biennial budget for $12 million, so $6 million per year. We still pale in comparison to many other Western states, but we're making progress, and this is a great step. We're poised here to really robustly launch into some recovery programming that we hope will turn into some fast economic impact. We're also building programs that are not just marketing, not just trade, but development. So programs that would directly benefit you as industry members. Today is a great example of that, and this destination development program will only grow from here. So with that, I would love to turn it over to Mike and to Michelle. I know that Mike will be talking further about our destination development program as the day goes on, as well as our travel trade initiatives, which are already underway. But to begin with, I'll pass it off to Michelle Thana, our newly hired Director of Marketing, who can talk more about consumer marketing. Michelle.
Great, thanks so much, Dave. So I just want to give kind of a quick update on what WTA has been up to and is up to on the marketing side of things. One of the first initiatives that we're undertaking now that we do have some funding available is to rebrand Washington State and WTA and come up with a more modern and cohesive brand platform that we can launch our marketing initiatives from. You can see sort of samples of some of the nearby state brands on this slide. Washington State has been around for probably more than a decade and I think served well in its time, but it is time to update that brand and really have a modern and relevant brand platform that we can use to market to leisure travelers. We are in the midst of that process. We're coming to a conclusion of it. We'll hopefully have that new brand coming out in the fall, and we will be sure to update you and the rest of the industry partners around the state once that brand is ready. At the same time, we are working on a new consumer-facing website. ExperienceWA.com has also been around for quite a while and again, served well and been a good platform, but it's just time to modernize that website. So we've contracted with Tempest to build us a new website that we'll be able to use to serve up content to travelers from around the country and around the world that will really help inspire people to want to visit Washington State. We will be launching phase 1 of that website, hopefully around the same time as the brand comes out in the fall. And then we will have a second phase that's built out a little bit more as we go into next year. We'll be continuing to build and grow that website. Over the course of COVID, we've also had a couple of really targeted initiatives. ShowWildLove.com, which really focused on encouraging locals to buy gift cards and support local businesses. And Mike really worked with Jen Tate, our contractor, to build this out and help support during sort of the most difficult time in our history. The other initiative that we have is sort of these microsites. We have Washington road trips that we'll be starting to promote as we get into the summer months to help inspire sort of that regional travel and restart travel as things are reopening. And we also have Explore Washington's Backyard. This is a passport that is provided by Bandwango. It's a mobile-only technology where people can go and download a pass, and it has all these different parks and outdoor experiences that people can check into. And as they check into those, as they get to a certain number, we have prizes they can win. So from hats and t-shirts to, we have some really great travel packages that are sort of a grand prize, including our next one, which is a wine country focused experience that was generously provided for by the DMOs in the region. You can kind of see what the passport looks like on the screen here, but I also just encourage you to go to the website and download the pass and kind of play with it yourself. It's a nice experience, and it's a good way to kind of get people thinking about new places. And we really worked hard to make sure that these places were spaces where people have room and can distance as needed, even as things are reopening. Another resource that we have available that has good assets now, but that we're continuing to build out is our digital asset library. We have a lot of great photos from around the state, including wine country. And I'll drop the links to both of those in the chat after I finish, just so everyone can take a look. You can log on here. You just sort of submit your information and you'll be able to access the library, and then you can request to use photos as you need them, if you need them for your websites or your social media or things like that. And you can kind of see, we just did a shoot in the San Juan Islands in the winter, and we'll be moving around the state to kind of shoot the different regions throughout the next year, year and a half, but really kind of focusing on strategically, what do we not already have in the asset library? And also, when do these regions have capacity to add visitors? All right, I think it's back to you, Mike. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. And like you said, there's just so many exciting things on the horizon here. And one of the exciting things about the website that I wanted to quickly touch on is the fact that we are going to have an industry side of the website where you'll be able to log in and get research and all sorts of toolkits for the marketing and for the branding. We'll also have a travel trade portal where people can learn more about specific destinations. And a bit more on the travel trade, you should know that we are out there representing you, representing Washington on the international trade scene. As you may know, people who come here internationally tend to spend a lot more money. According to U.S. Travel, they spend over $4,200 a trip, and they tend to stay for 18 days. And so that's a really valuable market. And the difference between international travelers and domestic travelers is that they still, over 50%, use tour operators and travel advisors to make their trip. Most of us, just go directly, or they're going on an OTA like Expedia. So they do it a little bit differently. And so it's really important that the tour operators and the receptive tour operators know about Washington, know about properties who are willing to work with them. And so that's really why we go out on these to these trade shows and these sales missions. And so we're still representing you, and we're only growing this. And you may recognize our old buddy Ron Williams there from IPW from a few years ago. And so we're still out there doing that for Washington State. And then destination development. That's why we're here today. Like we said, this is really just the first conversation here in wine country about this, but this is not the end. We will be holding quarterly meetings, not 4 hours long, but hopefully like an hour, hour and a half every quarter, sometimes in person, sometimes online, just so we can keep this conversation going. To make sure that we, keep the momentum going, give you updates from the WTA, maybe have themes for different meetings so we can talk through, the different ways to partner. And it's really about, kind of creating an identity for each of these regions. You guys really have a strong identity already. And I know your DMOs have really done an amazing job, keeping that identity going and really building that. And it's interesting, in these meetings, because every region is really in a different place. You go to one region, they really have, it's not about destination development, it's more about destination management, and just managing the tourists that are already coming, like the island region, the San Juans. And then other places, other regions where they have people doing pretty much the same thing, just a county over, but they've never met each other. And there's so many opportunities for partnership. And we've really seen that blossom through these workshops. And so it's really cool to see that happen. And like I said, this is only the beginning. Starting hopefully this fall, we'll have a rural tourism development program where communities can apply to a much more in-depth program where you'll be, doing a full day workshop to uncover the identity of your community, and then you'll, find some different projects that are really actionable that will help your community right away. That you can work on. We'll have experts there to help you along with that, to build those plans, and then there will be grant funding to come behind that to help you implement those plans. And so those details are being developed right now, but it will be very exciting. And we'll be doing one this fall, and so communities will be able to apply to this, and then the successful applicant will go through this workshop this fall. And then starting next year, we'll be doing at least 2 of these a year. And so I think this is a really exciting part of our development program. So right now, I want to introduce our next speaker. His name is Matt Lyons, and he's coming from TRED. TRED is a very great example of things that have come out of these meetings. When we did the Trails and Lakes region, which is just to your north, up in north central Washington, we met Matt, and his organization started in Chelan, building this kind of this group that brought land managers together and user groups together to try to create a cohesion of what was happening in their region. And out of that, they met somebody named Mark, who was a map and app developer who started to create this amazing app that allows land managers and users to communicate and provide real-time information for people who are out on the trails. And for just an own personal example why this is important, this last winter, my wife and I went up, we wanted to do some snowshoeing up near Snoqualmie, and we went into the snow park not knowing how many people were there, and went down this one-way road, and there were so many people at this trailhead that it took us 4 hours to get out of there. And had we known that, hey, this trailhead's already full, but there's another snow park just 10 miles down the road, our experience would have been 10 times better, and it would have been much better for that destination, that trailhead. And so with TRED, we feel like this is really a cool opportunity to provide that real-time information, to let users know, where to go and what to do. And so I want to introduce Matt, and I'll let him take it from here.
Thanks, Mike. Again, good morning, everybody. We just had a press release yesterday that went out announcing this partnership. I'm gonna share my screen and give you just a little quick video here that I think kind of sums up what we're about. And I want to make sure that you can hear the sound. So Mike, if you'll give me the thumbs up that it's working.
So you might be asking yourself, what is TREAD? Well, TREAD is a local nonprofit made up of diverse outdoor recreational users that include skiers,
mountain bikers, road riders, ORV users,
boaters, kayakers, equestrians, hikers, and pretty much everything in between.
TREAD stands for Trails, Recreation, Education, Advocacy, and Development.
And one of our main goals is to bring all the different outdoor recreation interests together to plan the best way to utilize our region's outdoor assets.
And to protect these amazing resources as population pressure grows.
So one of the things that makes this area unique is that the local trail users actually care about this place and want to take care of it.
To accomplish our goals, it's essential that we share this culture of caring with anyone who comes to visit for just a day or decides to move here.
So how do we best share our culture of caring?
About a year ago, we found an application developer up in Winthrop that has created the framework for an app we're calling TREAD Maps.
TREAD Maps is a one-stop shop to plan your next outing. Share your experience and the conditions out on the trails or water.
Create connections with other people who share your same interests, and most importantly, give land managers a portal to communicate with user groups and vice versa.
There are lots of outdoor recreation apps out there, but none of them provide this connection between land managers and user groups across all user types.
It's through this connection that our sense of community and caring about this place can be shared locally and with visitors.
TREAD Maps allows for different seasons, overlays for smoke, fire and avalanche danger, minute-to-minute trail conditions and closures,
weather events, volunteer coordination, and the list goes on and on.
For users, this means real-time, hyper-local trail information.
You'll know exactly what to expect before heading out, where you are while you're on the trail, and have the ability to add photos and details during and after your time on the trail.
Our last step now is to fund the development and rollout of TREAD Maps for the greater Wenatchee area. Thanks to the Community Foundation of North Central Washington and give.
Okay. That, where'd you go? Mike?
All right.
Oh. Mike, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Something went funny with my screen. So that video is a little bit old because we made that a couple years ago. In that time, we've actually formed many partnerships. And then with the new partnership with WTA, we've actually started a pilot project for the Trails and Lakes region. So it's the 5 counties above you right now. What's really unique about us is it's all recreation users all the time in one spot. That kind of will drive people to one spot, hopefully. And then our land managers behind it. So when we combine all this effort, we're really trying to just say, hey, when you come love this area, don't love it to death, right? And I think COVID has kind of proven that maybe we saw a little bit of that. So, you know, here's kind of Washington State, what we expect when we come. It's scenic and beautiful, and then COVID hit and everybody went outside, which is great, except maybe not so great for some of our trails and facilities. And what we saw was a lot of maybe some bad press, and like Mike said, some really overcrowded parking lots. And wouldn't it be great if you knew what was going on out there? So with the app, what we can do is, while Mike's out there, he could have let us all know. So he could pull up his phone and say, hey, this parking lot is super full right now. And as soon as he does that, it lets us all know so that we can avoid that parking lot. Thank you, Mike. We can do it for trees that are down, conditions that are too muddy. So it's user informed, and then most importantly, the land managers have control of the back end. So it's their information. A lot of other apps let users kind of design their own trails, and maybe they're not sanctioned, and maybe they're causing resource damage. We want to have that experience that's authentic from the land manager. Also, more importantly, with tourism, what we're trying to do is this circle of sustainable recreation tourism that we've kind of started to wrap our heads around. And what that means is you're probably not going to come visit the wine region and maybe pick up a shovel or do some trail maintenance work after you played on those trails or those recreation areas. But what you might do is you might go to a winery or you might go to a brewery and you might spend that money there. And we want to highlight those wineries and breweries and other small businesses that are tied into the local trail systems, tied into local organizations that take care of the assets. And so then we would encourage you to spend your money there, trying to keep that tourist dollar supporting those outdoor rec assets. The other thing that we do is we're not a membership-driven organization. We try to drive membership to outdoor rec nonprofits like Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, the Backcountry Horsemen, Washington Trails Alliance. So if we can drive membership to those groups, they're doing the really good work. We protect the assets of your region, try to keep the money all coming in and staying in one spot. And then because of our app developer, Mark Rothmeyer, who's actually out of Winthrop, we have had a team on this for the last couple of months, and you can see from the video the kind of look and feel has changed a little bit. So as you come into the app, you can see that the Trails and Lakes region is highlighted right here. And then on the bottom, this banner, we can scroll through to the wine country, to the islands, and things like that. This is what I'm really excited about, this talk, these trip reports. So this person went out on this trip and had a great time and let everybody know what was going on. It gives conditions if there's cell service, trips with dogs, things like that. And I think if I want to do one more screen share, Mike, I can actually show you in real time what my phone looks like. You see my phone? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is what it looks like. And the banner down here at the bottom, you can see the different regions. This just brings our users to which one do they want to go to. Wine country coming soon, hopefully, right? And as we zoom in here to the app, you'll see all the trails popping up. I'm actually in Leavenworth, Washington right now. Here's a bunch of trails we can highlight. These are the conditions that are being reported out there. There's a tree down. We can do videos of how full the parking lot is. That's how full it is. Flower conditions, so people know where the flowers are and how high they need to get to, things like that. There's a snake. So that's kind of a way that we can keep this social interaction going with all of our visitors and all of our locals, and then this hyper local real-time information. There's a safety feature built in here. So if a land manager has an issue, like this one was a bridge is out, we want everybody to know that. We can do it in Spanish and English. We've done it for power lines. We've done it for avalanche. DNR just called me and they'd like to do it for maybe some campfire restriction stuff that's happening now. So stuff that we want everybody to know about. We've got that safety feature built in there. There are so many different things that this app does. I will get yelled at by Mike for taking up too much time. So I'm just going to say that in Yakima and the Tri-Cities and Walla Walla, there's a ton of recreation happening, right? And I know you guys have been doing great work. We just want to come help enhance that and protect it. So I'll leave my information in the chat. This is probably the 4th or 5th. Oh, my battery's running low. And I look forward to making connections for any of you that want any support in that area. Call Mike, call me, we'll figure it out. Mike, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's great. And you might wonder why the WTA is involved with this. You know, it's not, when we had our enabling legislation, it really specifies it's not just about, you know, bringing heads and beds. But I mean, that's important to us. That's definitely, you know, a big part of what we do. But we're also, you know, trying to help outdoor recreation, help people, you know, safely and responsibly recreate and explore our state. And so that's why we're so involved with this. And we think it's, and I've talked to other states, nobody else is doing this. This is a brand new, high, like just cutting edge thing. And as Michelle, our director of marketing said, it's kind of like the ways of trails, right? And so the more users that use it, the more land managers get behind it, the more effective it's going to be. And we're just very, very excited about the possibilities of this app, and we can't wait to bring it across the state. I think we have a couple minutes for questions. If anybody has any, feel free to just throw them in the chat. I see Liz says this is awesome. She's hiking this week and she'll send photos. Thank you, Liz.
Yay. And then I know if you're a hotel owner or business owner, a lot of times people that are visiting will ask you, hey, where should I go for this activity? And oftentimes we send them to a chamber, and this chamber might send them to the land manager or maybe to a bike shop or whatever. But now we can just have these fancy little QR codes, and the answers are in the QR code regardless of your activity. So I really like that we can just point people to one spot and then they can have that information on their own. Doesn't matter what activity they're doing. Hopefully we bring some money back to your local community and protect the assets that you have. Maybe build a bigger parking lot where it's needed, or add a toilet or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the plan. At the end of the day, the end of the story is, how do we collectively work together, find efficiencies, and then bring money back to locals.
And it's not just trails, right, Matt?
Not just trails. We're doing recreation areas like Tri-Cities, all your ORV parks and huge ORV activities down there. It's snow, it's water, it's rock climbing. If you do it outside, then that's what it's about.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. That was a great update. And I think it's time to turn it back over to Dan.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And thanks, WTA Update team. Sounds like weekend update since you were Ron Burgundy earlier, Mike, the WTA update team. Okay, so huge part of this workshop and what we're trying to do here is get everybody on the same page with what's going on throughout the state. So you just learned about what Washington Tourism Alliance is doing for tourism, for all of us who work in tourism throughout the state. And those are initiatives from marketing to branding to destination development to app development and partnerships like with TRED. And the other part of this workshop is that this region is made up of 3 DMOs. And I would love to hear from the leaders of those DMOs. So that's the Walla Walla, Yakima Valley, and the Tri-Cities. And so maybe, Michael, if we can start with you, we'll put you on the spot and just give a brief update about what's going on in the Tri-Cities region that was relevant in terms of tourism, that's relevant to the region-wide and opportunities for partnerships and so on. So if you are still with us and you're willing to jump in here and give us a brief update, I'm going to pick on you first.
Love it. Thanks, Dan. Great question. So actually, from the regional perspective, we're working across all 3 areas. So Yakima, Tri-Cities, and Walla Walla, collaboratively with the WTA, working to do a wine country FAM. So both for travel trade, you heard about tour operators, but also for travel writers that are reaching out to the consumer to come and enjoy and have a wonderful experience here. Of course, wine's a big part of all of what we do, labeled as such. We have a lot going on in that fashion. We have some new direct flights, Buck Taft, our airport directors, on this call. So we have activity going on in San Diego right now. So we're looking outside of Washington State to bring visitors in. Some other opportunities, LA area with our Burbank flight as well. Super exciting. Chris Kirby's on the call from the National Parks. STEM tourism is a big piece of what we've got going on. Super unique. You can get your geek on in the Tri-Cities. So we have a number of endeavors there. National Parks launched a new app that we're super excited about, so people can go out, tour, and learn more about the history. It's kind of a high-level look of just a handful of things that we've got going on to drive tourism in the region. But we are doing a lot of in-state marketing as well as looking to activate our community for visiting friends and relatives.
You're a professional updater, Michael. That was fantastic. Inspiring, but yet quick and to the point. Nice work. John, can I turn it over to you to also impress this group or with updates from your part of the region?
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm John Cooper with Yakima Valley Tourism, and I've been in this position many, many years. And before that, I was up in Bellingham. So been in state tourism activities for quite a few years. Specifically in our area and then the collective marketing, if you see over my shoulder over here, this side, there's a wine country poster. And Washington Wine Country was an organization that was formed way back in the early 2000s. And it's a collective effort from time to time between our 3 regions. And Michael and I have had some conversations about where do we take it in the future. Basically, right now we have a website and some social media that we're going to be looking at to further advance regional efforts and regional activities. Here on a local level, we just completed an opening, an 18,000 square foot addition to our convention center. The Yakima Convention Center is now the 4th largest convention and event center in the state. So we're looking forward to welcoming groups back. Likewise, with the pandemic, we've recognized and in hearing about TRED's efforts, it's very indicative for us. We're on the backside of Mount Rainier, and with our hiking trails, river access, water, et cetera, and the skiing and mountains, outdoor recreation is a growing area of interest for us, people looking for those wide open spaces. Likewise, our wine country continues to move along. I was very impressed with our wine industry at how they responded to the pandemic, as well as our craft beer industry. Now, while we lost a couple of our breweries, there's still a very strong base of them, and there's extremely great interest in the whole hop culture in the beer industry. So those are just a few of the higher level activities looking right now for us. We too are looking at opportunities for expanding our reach. We're in the process of expanding our tourism promotion area to provide more resources to do just that. And as international travel slowly starts to come back, especially encouraged with hearing the news from Canada about how they may be relaxing their restrictions of travel between our two countries, because Canada is our largest inbound international market. Many people think of it as being a domestic market, but it's still an international country. We have a border there, and there's a lot of issues there. And so that's a valuable market to us too. So those on the spot are just a few things just wanted to bring to the fore.
Excellent. Thanks, John. And on the beer front, as I said earlier, I'm visiting my family in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I went into they don't allow you to buy beer in a grocery store because that would require greater maturity, apparently. So you have to go to a liquor store here, and there's just aisle and aisle of craft brew. And I just realized that probably even though these breweries are all over the country, and many of them right here in the Twin Cities, I mean, the majority of those hops are grown right in your backyard, John, not literally your backyard, but your region. And what a great opportunity to educate the beer consumer around the world about the Yakima Valley and the whole central Washington region where these hops are grown.
Well, I love to tell our friends in Bend and Portland and other beer towns, Colorado and otherwise, without our hop, there would be no craft beer industry. And
exactly.
They know that, and they know the Yakima Valley hops are exceptional products, and they crave those hops all over the world.
Yeah, lots of storytelling potential there. So thanks, John, for that. And then last but not least, Robert, love to hear from the Walla Walla area and what you are working on.
Great, thank you. And thanks to John and Mike for taking the lead on the wine country for the 3 areas. But we're continuing to promote the area. We're working on responsible and safe travel promotions right now, working with some BIPOC influencers, so bringing more diversity and equity into our tourism reach. And we are reaching out to the larger markets, Portland, Seattle, Boise, Spokane, right now to bring people in. But what's great about working in small communities, as Michael and John can tell you, is that we have great partners in the chamber, as you heard from Kyle earlier today, and his want for teaching about tourism in the city, the Downtown Foundation, and then the city and county, and the port. So, and speaking of the port, we've added one more flight from Seattle as of mid-May. So we have 3 flights coming in directly from Seattle to the Walla Walla Airport now, instead of the 2 that were going on. And those flights are filling up based on the stats I've recently seen. And then Walla Walla is really opening up to where we were in the pre-COVID days. We had the tour of Walla Walla, the bicycle race just happened here last weekend. Car shows are coming in, the balloon stampede's happening again. So we're just making sure everybody knows that we're open for business. The wine industry is going gangbusters, and we're just thrilled to be almost out of a pandemic era. So thanks to our community support and the community at whole. And also, just like WTA, we are renewing our website. And so you'll see a more content-oriented website than the directory-oriented website you've seen in the past. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, let's jump back into the content. Hopefully you found that as useful as I did, just to learn about who you all are and what are the initiatives going on in the area. Let's jump back into the rest of the presentation here. Okay, so the next section here is really having a conversation amongst yourselves about defining the region, what we refer to as wine country, but as all three of our regional DMOs highlighted, there's so much more going on in this region than just wine. And so that is what I'm hoping that you all will be able to do, is you will be broken up into smaller groups, and within your group, answering the question, what are key characteristics that unite the entire region? So again, going back to this map here, there's, you could hone in on this map and find unique characteristics that are found only in that part of wine country. But what we're really trying to have a conversation about here is, what are some of those characteristics that bring all of you together, all three of the DMOs that you just heard from, and all of the small off the beaten path areas within your whole region? Are there key characteristics that unite you all together? And then discuss what tourism currently looks like in the wine country. What is happening pre-COVID, currently set up for this summer, and where do you see the future? And then choose maybe the top three of these characteristics and top three of what tourism looks like in your region to share with your group. Doesn't have to be a precise number. Maybe you just came up with one amazing thing and you're excited to share that. So you're going to be broken up into smaller groups, and we'll take about 25, maybe 20, 25 minutes to have those conversations. You may want to take a photo of this screen right now so you don't forget the questions. Otherwise, you'll just have an opportunity to get to know each other, which is also not a terrible idea. So looking forward to hear what you have to say. And Mike, if you can do your magic of sending people off into their breakout rooms.
Yeah, and we're going to go until 9:25. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms up.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, it's like a WTA board
Did you plan this?
Now we do have a couple other folks in here. Commissioner Mullen and Julie also on the line here.
Cool. Is this the full group, Mike, or is there others joining?
Yeah, there we go. We have one more. Rob Peterson's also joining us. There we go. And Guy Glazier's on this too.
Ain't nothing but trouble in this room.
I know.
Bunch of introverts.
What are you trying to say, Liz? Jeez. Oh, funny. I'm actually going to keep my camera off for a little bit. God, that was hilarious. I was looking at my screen, and then I saw my cat's butt on the screen. So that's a nice way to introduce myself.
Oh, perfect.
That was fantastic. So those key characteristics, I was just penciling something out real quick when I thought about truly across the region. Obviously wine, but I think it's craft beverage, because Yakima certainly has it going on. We've got an ale trail. We're strong in Walla Walla, but then we've got cideries and distilleries. I don't know if all three communities do, but I think under craft, that was big. It's a different flavor of hiking than what you see over there on the west side, Mike Moe, but hiking trails, we've all got them too. It's happening. Yakima, Walla Walla, and the Tri-Cities. Cycling, the same thing. We just heard from Robert Hansen about the cycling adventure there, but We've got road biking, mountain biking. I'm certain the same exists in Yakima as well.
Mhm.
So those were those outdoor rec pieces, and we've all got water to different degrees. Yeah, we've rivers, Mill Creek, and the reservoir there in Walla Walla, but those are also, I think, defining characteristics of the region.
Fly fishing as well.
Right. Yeah, fishing.
I agree. Fishing is, I think, just coming into its own as far as people knowing about it.
We have the Yakima River, and we have people from all over the world coming to fly fish. It's amazing.
Oh, I bet, as they should. I think from Walla Walla, you've got to get out of town about a half hour, 45 minutes, but there's plenty of good fishing from the friends that I talked to.
You know, I don't know if there's other defining characteristics, if other people have thoughts, but what does tourism look like in wine country? You know, and Liz and Guy and Commissioner Mullen and Julie, I don't know if you've got different thoughts here, but I think for the most part, when people come to Tri-Cities, for instance, unless it's a business trip, chances of them being here for a full week is probably pretty unlikely, but 2 or 3 nights is I mean, that's what we do, right? Sweet spot. But I think when we look at the entire region, there's great opportunity to have a week-long visit in wine country.
Mhm.
So I think, you know, there's where the potential is. I think that's what we're working on, that FAM around, which is pretty cool. I think there's a lot to experience outside of what we just talked about. We heard from the arts community earlier. Walla Walla's got a thriving arts community, as I know Yakima does, and we certainly do too. But there's all kinds of experiences beyond wine. And we did a little strategic planning with our winemakers as pre-COVID, asking about just kind of what their thoughts were and what they heard from people hitting their tasting rooms and what are they doing. And all of them said the same thing. I mean, they certainly go, you know, from place to place, but you can only drink so much wine. So they're looking for all the blending of adventures,
Mhm.
right? So what other experience in culinary, farm to fork? I guess we should have thrown that out. Huge. We're just in this agricultural hub where agritourism is a big deal.
The food and beverage scene, I think for all 3 cities, really stand out as far as when we have our guests come to the Yakima Valley. We finally are getting to that level where the food is just becoming a destination in itself. And I'm sure Walla Walla and the Tri-Cities. So people want those authentic experiences where they meet the chef and the winemaker or the brewery, and to capture that in an evening. And you can do that in many of our restaurants where you actually meet the chef and you don't even have to plan for it. Those are those experiences that people, especially in the larger cities, I think Seattle and Portland and Olympia, Tacoma, they're looking for these outdoor excursions.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I know it's applicable statewide. I think that's one of the things that aside from some of the big metropolitan areas, you know, I think any of the smaller destinations, you've got a chance to really connect. But I think with the artisan element of winemaking, people are just wowed by meeting a winemaker or a chef. And so, although I don't think it's specific to us, I think it's highlighted with us.
Yeah, just yesterday I was talking to the CEO of, oh my gosh, is it Greater Palm Springs? It's a number of different regions down to California. He'd flown up, was having a Walla Walla wine experience. They came here to the Tri-Cities. We're at Bookwalter, which has they're constantly getting written up for their fiction restaurant. The Bookwalter's wines are fantastic. Anyways, they met the winemaker, who's also the restaurateur, had this amazing conversation, connected in with me. And then anyways, it was the experience we're talking about. He said John was such a character. He just kind of like got to talking with him. Where are you from? What are you up to? Just doing what he does. And next thing you know, they're having this massive conversation and they love meeting the winemaker.
Unfortunately, John couldn't make it today. He was registered, but yeah.
Former WTA board member. I know you know him well, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Julie.
He has so much to brag about. It's really incredible.
Julie, just break in. These 3 will just go on and on. I want to make sure that we're hitting everybody here.
We sucked the air out of the room, Mike.
People are all walking their dogs.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Funny.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so this is Julie. And I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. We've been in the hospitality business here in Prosser for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And I've been involved in this business my whole adult career, and I'm getting old now. But one of the things that I am definitely seeing is trying to develop other things. And obviously we're in the birthplace of Washington wine industry, is that people are also looking for outdoor recreation experiences. So the thing I'm hoping that Prosser can really start doing, and others of you have done a really great job, Yakima and Tri-Cities, is still developing bike trails and kayak information and trying to get people with bicycle rentals in here and that sort of thing. So I think that would really extend tourists' experiences and help to encourage spending some more dollars in the community.
So Julie, are you thinking rental opportunities in Prosser proper? Is that?
Yeah, I think certainly in Prosser, but I think, Walla Walla's obviously had bike shops for a long time, and Tri-Cities too now down there by the park. But it's those kind of things that I think if we can encourage other businesses or entrepreneurs looking for opportunities, I think those are the kind of things that we can really develop. And I spent 20 years in Puget Sound, so I saw the impact of, having great outdoor recreation opportunities. And people in the Northwest expect that, that's what you have. That's why a lot of people live out here. Anyway, so I'm just saying that I think that providing that for our guests coming in would be a nice way to round out the experience besides food and wine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think Walla Walla is in great need of outdoor recreation. We all been here. There's some, but it's not close to being enough of what's developed. And one of the things that you said this, Julie, and it just popped into my mind. And here in Walla Walla, and in Portland actually, and maybe in other communities, we used to do this Sunday Parkways bike where they would shut down roads. And it was only bike traffic. And I go, wouldn't it be a fun idea to shut down some country roads and kind of just for, a Saturday from 10 to 5. And it's like, this road is closed for bikes only, connecting wineries, enjoy those country roads. It just occurred to me, it doesn't have to be in a city.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I was just in Boise. I had my bike with me. And it just boggled my mind what they've done. And that's not it's a nice river, but it's not anything exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some nice rivers going through this whole region.
Yeah. The other sport that I think we get a lot of our guests at as well is the golf courses.
Yeah.
People
Yes, that's a big one.
On the east side. And it's because I think they're not so crowded and the scenery is gorgeous.
Yep.
So those
put together golf course map.
Yes.
What's that?
That's a good one because we'll get certainly out of Seattle and Portland and Spokane, but even Canada, because our courses are open year round generally.
Yeah.
I think you just hit on something when you just said the golf map, Julie, of all of that. Something I was pinning out here as we were talking. But we've got, and John mentioned it. So Visit Yakima and Visit Tri-Cities, own this Washington wine country, this thing. And it was where Wine Flies Free was birthed out of, right? And then Alaska Airlines expanded. We include Walla Walla in it. But when John and I were talking, what do we do with this? And we were talking about building out maybe there's grant opportunity for our future winemakers or something else. But what if through that or regionally, we had this look at, if you came in with these outdoor rec opportunities, but it's across the region, here's the availabilities of rentals, the trails maps, the golf courses, but it really was somebody get a regional snapshot of all of this exist on that site, as well as, I don't know if those are the things that would appear in TRED. Mike, you might be able to help with that, but I like that. If it was, here's wine region and you've got throat to throttle Yakima all the way down to Walla Walla, just all of this stuff, so Prosser, of course, and everything in between.
I think there's real opportunities, in wine country to create those different maps around different opportunities. I think the creative districts, another thing that really seems to be blossoming across the state. I was just talking to Michelle and Jen about how do we support the creative districts, and how can we, bring more recognition to the creative districts across the state, because it's a really cool kind of a newer developing program that we have.
That's good.
Go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to say, I'm actually developing, I own a historic building that was built in 1906. My great grandfather built it. But we're developing a pottery studio in the back in one of the garages. So it'll be about 1,400 square feet. And people are so excited about this pottery studio, which wasn't even on my radar screen, as far as tourists. But I've had guests say, "Oh, when's the pottery studio? We'll come back for the pottery to do pottery." I'm like, wow. So you're right. I think the arts is a big draw for a lot of people.
Well, go ahead, Guy.
Could it be just as simple as sponsoring art fairs? I mean, that's all we need to, not that Walla Walla needs another weekend or, to bring tourists in, but I mean, that's, I think, to shift the focus a little bit. Yeah. We're known for wine, but if we all had an art fair on the calendar, that might help. And I know we've got little ones. There's all the work's already been done. We just have to get the artists together, and I know that they would bring a lot of attention to that. Anyways, that's what I was thinking.
Well, it's a great shoulder off season, opportunity too, to bring people in.
Christmas shopping. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So Julie, with your makerspace there, are you looking into creative districts in Prosser, and is that happening in Yakima and Walla Walla too?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question?
If you're looking into building a creative district there in Prosser, and if your makerspace was a part of that?
Well, part of what started the whole idea for me is that we've got a huge distillery. It's supposed to be the third largest in the country. Going in behind us, and we've got people making tables next to us, and we've got roasting coffee, all this stuff kind of happening in this little core. And I thought, God, we've got all this creativity because this country is, there's a lot of people with really great technical skills like metalworking and that type of thing. Anyway, so that's kind of where the pottery studio came from. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe that's a great draw for the little community, is if we can figure out how to do a little arts district, I guess.
In Yakima, Julie, we have something similar called Yakima Makerspace, and they have a space where you can do that pottery or iron works. And this Friday, we're actually local coffee shop roasteries having a conversation about creating a creative district in Yakima.
Oh,
we have our Capitol Theater, it's our performance hall, and we have Town Hall, Best of Broadway, the Symphony, but now the local community is wanting to reach out a bit more. And and we have an active art, we do art walks often. We have a number of galleries that are very active, but they're all spread out. Yeah. So when the visitor comes, it's a mismatch of different places.
Yeah, I've actually been to your makerspace, and the Mighty Thibodeau is a really great example of who's doing it well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think things like that, and that's a real gem that, as far as I know, it's kind of unknown.
It is unknown. The best kept secret in town.
Yeah, it really is.
And again,
anyway,
it's getting that name, it's money trying to get the name out.
Yeah.
Doing those things across the region, if there was the development of the creative districts, would be a really cool way to highlight everything, because then we've got the state behind it. You heard Stephanie Button, one of our downtown associations director, mentioned they've got one underway in downtown Kennewick. Richland does, and Pasco's exploring it as well. And I think there may be a second one that pops up in Kennewick. So our community is embracing the creative districts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we had to pick top three, because I know Mike gave us the 5-minute warning there, things we'd like to share, would it be amplifying outdoor recreation and then doing regional maps or awareness around the assets and amenities within it?
You guys are kind of skipping ahead.
Sounds great to me.
Yep.
Great,
very succinct.
That might be 1, 2, and 3.
Well done.
But what about, is this the idea of pursuing creative districts? Is it, I don't know if it's a regional endeavor, but regionally everybody's invested in that, really driving the makerspace? Is that a worthy thing to be pushing towards?
I think so.
Yes, if it makes sense coming from the tourism industry, I agree. I think it does. Yeah.
I think post-pandemic, more and more people are going to embrace the arts. Quality of life is now highlighted.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I just played my first gig in about, I don't know, at least 18 months last weekend with the Master Singers. They did pop hits, which they don't normally do. So they brought in a rhythm section and I was playing drums in an outdoor stage in downtown Richland.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
that's great.
Welcome back.
Right?
Did you have a good crowd, Michael?
We did. They did 2 shows. It was really impressive because it was a little cool and a little breezy, but people were digging it. It was, they were ready for the arts.
That's awesome.
People are ready to go watch a show. I can tell you that much. I know I am.
Yeah.
So did we hit all 3 of those questions, Michael?
I think so. Key characteristics we talked about. We've got craft opportunities. The food and beverage streaming we said was strong, and then we talked about all this different outdoor recreation and agritourism. And then what does tourism look like in wine country? I think we talked about really this unified effort, which led us into that amplifying outdoor recreation and how we could highlight that. And then also the pursuit of creative space, creative districts across the region. So I think so. How's everybody else feel?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, let's wrap it up early.
We're just that kind of efficient. We kill ourselves.
Right.
I think it's really, coming up with these kind of themes around golf or around arts. I think it's so much easier to market when it's like, okay, we're going to do this specific, and we're going to target this specific theme, rather than just like, oh, we have all of these things. It's just so much easier to do that.
And our guests, especially at Hotel Maison, they always tell me the one thing we can't do is drink all day. We need other activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to start
Take 'em out
at 3, but they don't want to go at 10.
Right.
I think some people need to build some endurance. So maybe that's what we run a camp.
Yeah, we need repeat customers. They need to build up their stamina. You come back every week.
You need a training regimen for at home before you get here.
Oh, funny.
Cool.
Well, it's interesting. There's a whole industry of golf trade shows that you mentioned, and I know this is a big representation, and I know we're about to jump off. I wonder if there's a similar creative space trade show or something, that we could promote ourselves at. Who knows?
All right, you have to decide who's talking for the group.
Michael.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks all.
We'll see you back at the big room.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Judging from just the interesting conversations my small group had, I'm really excited to hear what you all learned from each other and what ideas you came up with. And typically the way we do this is I just say, who wants to jump in and share what their group has to say? And then sometimes there's some uncomfortable silence, and I usually like to let that go longer than people want. But just to put you all on the spot here to participate. So who'd like to jump in first?
I'll jump in.
Michael, nice work with your hand raised.
And I beat Robert Hansen to the buzzer. I love it. Yeah, so we had a really rich conversation with our group, and we were looking at those defining characteristics across the region. There was some common themes, right? So anything that was related to craft beverages. So wine being a part of this, we have some larger manufacturers for sure, but it was wine, but it was also beer. We've got ale trails happening through the entire region, was a big piece of this. And distilleries, which is exciting. But when we looked at outdoor recreational opportunities, whether it's hiking or cycling, fishing became a big deal. Agritourism is huge in all 3 communities and the smaller communities in between Tri-Cities, Yakima and Walla Walla. Food and beverage is strong, and the cool opportunities we have is you get the opportunity to meet the winemakers, and we have several of them on this call, which is awesome, but also the chefs. So these were these defining characteristics for us when we were taking a look at really what we could do and what we thought made sense to present as these top 3 ideas. It was really
microwave for your matcha.
Actually, 2.5.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Once you eat something.
It was the amplification of these across the region. So really taking outdoor recreation, and maybe it's a regional golf map. So we all agreed that golf's definitely strong here, but the opportunity for us is when it's snow on the ground in Spokane, it's wet in Seattle, and definitely snowy in Canada. You can come play here in Eastern Washington, which was awesome. Doing the same thing with cycling in our region. So what are regional trail maps? What does that look like? So whether it's road cycling or getting out there mountain biking, but this would include rentals as well. And for our outdoor recreation, that would also include our waterways. That was another defining characteristic when we talked about fishing, but when we look at outdoor rec beyond fishing, it's where can you get the kayak rentals, paddleboard rentals, all of these things, but being able to consolidate that, and you can have this regional look because we believe that, while somebody might not come to one of our communities for a full week, if we're grabbing in 2 or 3 room nights, but then we're stretching that week out across the entire region, that's a doable deal. And we discussed the opportunity of tapping into TRED to highlight those things. And then finally, the last piece was creative districts. Stephanie Button mentioned this earlier in our call. The communities, all of our communities, either looking at it or have these wonderful maker spaces and artisans, and is really building out the creative districts across wine country, and then helping, tapping to the state, which will amplify it, but then really promoting that throughout our region so people can have that really rich experience. I think that was kind of rounded out our conversation.
Very, very in depth. Thank you, Michael. Robert, since I abruptly cut you off and gave Michael the floor, I would feel honored if you could go second.
Well, thank you for that honor. And thanks, Michael. You hit on a lot of things we talked about in addition to the winery and brewery industry that unites all of us. It was interesting. We talked more about what unites us than anything. And what's fun is it wasn't just the tangible, it was the intangible, the weather. Mm-hmm. The weather is something that is huge for our area. We have so many dry days, warm days, clear days that it's easy to promote our area. The Pasco Airport, and no offense to the other ports here who are all doing a great job, but the Pasco Airport has a number of direct flights from a lot of locations in the U.S. that make it easy to get to Yakima and Walla Walla and obviously the Tri-Cities. So those are 2 huge things. Michael hit upon our agritourism and outdoor recreation. And then in addition to those, our cultural offerings in all the communities are huge. I mean, we all have symphonies. Walla Walla has a chamber music program every summer. So all those areas are huge for us. And, we didn't come up with specific things we could do because we talked too much about what unites us. But anyway, those are, our top 5. Thanks.
Sounds good. And I see John Cooper's got his hand up. You guys are moving much more swiftly in this. I haven't had to have the uncomfortable silence of people not being too shy. I like that.
Oh, my staff likes a joke. There's not a mic I don't like. But many of the things that were discussed earlier, completely agree with. But one of the things we're trying to look at is let's find ways to reposition ourselves, that distinguish ourselves. We, as an organization, have gotten rid of using the phrase agritourism. Agriculture is a base for our community. We call it farm fresh fun. Outdoor recreation is used by everybody. We talk about it as outdoor adventure. And those were 2 areas we really talked about distinctly. And Michael, you're talking about the ability for us to look at creative districts. Definitely we talked about that with the music scene growing throughout the whole region. But one thing that really we felt was a connecting piece was our people here. You can get close to the people who are doing the products and the growing and the various productions. They're very approachable and they're very real people. We got a couple of our winemakers and folks on the phone right now, Susan Brown in particular with O and Row. I'll point her out. She's extremely approachable. She represents the wine industry amazingly. And that is a good example of what distinguishes us from other national wine regions. And so again, all the other things that were mentioned, outdoor adventure, farm fresh, the weather, but the people who are approachable, we're very hospitable area, and water recreation and adventure, all accessible. So those are the things we mentioned and covered.
Great. Thank you, John. I'm going to pick on Kathy from my group because I think you just kind of set the stage for what she was going to, well, part of what she was going to share, and then I'll let her build upon that. So go ahead, Kathy. Oh, you're on mute still.
I said, thank you, John, for that, that good start. But we talked about how, like what differentiates us from, for example, the Napa Valley or the California wineries, and that we're very still much in the wild, wild west phase, and that our wineries are more relaxed and our winemakers are more approachable. And, you know, we also have the difference from, for example, Woodinville, that we actually have the vineyards over here. So we're able to really give people an experience and a story and a sense of place when they talk about wine or hops. I suppose it would work for the brewers too, because the hops are grown right over here in Yakima Valley. So that was a really important differentiating factor. And I think we also talked about the fact that we're still very collaborative. And I think I've heard that from several of the other groups, that's a really important aspect of what we have as an advantage, and that we need to capitalize on that going forward. And we talked about the fact that our industry is still very young. I've done events all over the state, and when I tell people where Hedges is on Red Mountain, usually I get a question, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, that says, where's Red Mountain? And so one of the big things that we're focused on as a winery and hopefully as an industry is just educating people about what the assets are that we have over here, and why it's worth driving over the mountains to visit, or flying into Pasco, or you know, anything just to get people here. The diversity of opportunities we have, in addition to wine and beer, is all of the beautiful natural assets and great hotels. So we really, I think, are on the budding edge, and I'm excited to see this industry take off.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. And just my own editorializing here very briefly, I think what's so exciting about this opportunity where you are all coming together at this moment is that some of those unique qualities aren't guaranteed unique qualities about your story and who you are as a community aren't guaranteed to stay forever. And if those are things that you love and appreciate about how you all work together, your collaborative nature, your storytelling, the approachability and the intimacy that a visitor has by coming to this region, it's not a guarantee that will stay forever. But the fact that you're here working together and having these conversations, you can help build in some of that into your tourism development going forward, and how to make sure that that's a continuing part of your story. So again, this is another reason why I think it's so great that you're taking this time to be here. Who would like to go next?
I'll jump in.
Great, thanks, Kim.
One of the disadvantages of not being first is you're going to see a little repetition on our list with some of the other lists. But some of the characteristics that we felt are kind of constant throughout the region are our natural ability to socially distance in wide open spaces, our small town friendly laid back lifestyle. People crave that, and we have that in our communities. The year-round festivals, activities, and events that are offered throughout the regions, as well as that agricultural tourism component. What does tourism look like? Again, laid back, slower pace of life, the authentic experience that some of the other groups talked about, being able to interface with industry producers, winemakers, and how accessible people are. And again, just that friendliness, and because of the slower pace of life, not the opposite of big city experience is kind of what we talked about in our group.
Excellent. And I do want to say that one of the exciting parts about doing this type of work is that when people go into those small groups, have conversations, then they come back together and hear somebody else say almost word for word what their small group said. That shows that you all are there's a reason why you're all put in this region together, is because there truly is a lot of shared ideas and shared values. And so that can be cathartic at the same time as, oh, I was going to say that. All right, I think there were 6 groups and that was 5. So maybe there's one other,
Yeah, I can share a couple of things. First, I just want to reiterate that, yeah, there's a lot of repetition from group to group to group. And if I, just went through our top 3, they'd sound very much like everybody else's. But I do want to echo that approachable and authentic experience across the board in all of the different areas of travel. But wine country is one of those. You're just likely to see the winemaker maybe in teepees and shorts pouring behind the counter. You don't need to put on a shirt and jacket. It's friendly, it's relaxed, it's approachable. And I think that that's particularly relevant for attracting new generations of visitors to experience wine.
Wonderful. Anything else, Jennifer?
Anyone else from the group? Okay. We did talk about one of the things is that in our communities, we're seeing really a resurgence or burgeoning, I guess, of farm fresh flavors and wine country dining. And, the multicultural flavors have always been central to our dining scenes. And it's nice to see some really exceptional new dining experiences. Restaurants, pop-up, food experiences, meals in the vineyards and the hops, and then amazing creative food popping up at breweries. And so I think that's something that's exciting to see.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's a key opportunity, and I think you all are tapping into it already. So maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but just with so much of the of what is Washington State is known for coming from your region, there's such a great opportunity for storytelling to, whether it's a farmer's market in Seattle, or like I was saying, the liquor store here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was just such a great opportunity to get the word out about your region. But then the development piece is making sure that in addition to marketing and connecting people, those products to the places and the storytelling that goes with it, is then to have tourism assets that local people are benefiting from, whether it's tour companies or the lodging facilities or the wineries or whatever. So great opportunity. I mean, very few places have the export of high quality products that the wine region of Washington State has. All right, so and I always like to give just an update on time. We're actually a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great because you all are so quick to jump in and you're efficient with your updates. And so we're about 5 minutes ahead of schedule. And I usually like to take a break at this point to give you a chance to do all the things people need to do on breaks, whether that's take the dog out or take yourself out. But I do want to give Mike an opportunity to jump in here, just as representing Washington Tourism Alliance, just kind of give his perception on where things are going in this workshop so far, and any thoughts you have before we take our break.
Yeah, it was interesting in my group because they're already jumping ahead to what they could do to start promoting the region. And that's one of the great things about this meeting, is that you get these small groups with these great minds, who, they see an opportunity and you start to think about ways that you can address that opportunity, and you just watch, these little ideas sparking up, and that's exactly what this is all about, and just really exciting to watch.
Great. So I like to reward people who are working hard. Normally it's a 15-minute break, but I think we can go until noon. I'm sorry, noon's my time. That'd be 10 a.m. your time, and just give you some extra time to get the food or the coffee or whatever it's going to take for you to get through the next 2 hours of this workshop. But again, thank you so much for this energy. We'll come back right at 10 o'clock your time. And when we come back, we'll be doing some work with some case studies. So my thought is, let's show you a couple other places in the world that I think have some similarities that you might be able to take some ideas from, pick and choose what you like and let go of the things you don't like. And that might help continue sparking this creativity that you're demonstrating with this conversation. And then after that, we go into what can WTA do for you, basically, is how can we harness the fact that we have this statewide entity, advance your goals and initiatives for this region. So those are the two things we do when we come back, and I'll see you at 10 a.m. your time. Thanks again, everybody. John, you have been generous. John, you have been generous the last, every time I visited and met with you. So thank you for that. And I don't think it's a bribe. I think it's genuine hospitality, but I do like to promote your region.
Hospitality is a signature of our region.
That's right. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Welcome back. I hope you took care of some business and got a snack and maybe some more coffee or tea to help keep you going here. We've got approximately 2 hours left where we've got a lot of great conversations to have. And the first thing I'd like to jump in with is just outlining some potential paths that you might choose to take for your where you take tourism development in your region. So first of all, let's kind of go over just a few of these terms that I'm throwing around here and whether you think that it's relevant to you or not. So the three things we've been talking about on this call is what is destination development? And another aspect to that is destination management. And that's a bit of what Matt was talking about regarding TRED, for example, are some tools that destinations can use to actually help to manage the region, not just develop it and market it, but also tools to manage it. And from the Washington Tourism Alliance perspective, as well as to the DMOs here that are probably listed as destination marketing organizations, although some of you might refer to yourself as destination management organizations, but as a destination marketing organization, what does marketing have to do with destination development, and why is that something that Washington Tourism Alliance is investing in? So these are three questions that I think come up, and I think it's valuable just to take a couple minutes to discuss them. So the first one is, what is destination development? Well, this I found, you could find this all over the place, but this one was succinct enough that I thought it was appropriate. It's from the Utah Tourism Office. Any activity that increases and improves the quality of a visitor's experience in a travel destination. So I think that's valuable and really important. But one part that I personally think is missing from that is also that increases and improves the quality of life for the local people that receive the travelers. And quality of life is both assets that come from the tourism development, whether that's great restaurants that can sustain themselves because they've got travelers as part of their income source, whether that's a mountain bike trail that got developed to attract tourists from coming, but the local people get to use it, but also, of course, the economic benefit. If you are both a small business that benefits from tourism, or you're just a member of the community that your tax base is augmented by the travelers coming in. So to me, that's what we're really thinking about when we're talking about destination development, is what increases, improves the quality of visitor experience in a travel destination, as well as the local people's benefits. So then what about destination management? Well, this comes from the organization Solimar, which is a international consulting and consulting firm. And they say the coordinated management of all elements that make up a destination, including the attractions, amenities, access, marketing, and pricing. And so this call is a perfect example of the coordinated management. In addition to the three major DMOs in your region that we're working together prior to this call, and obviously work within their areas with their stakeholders. But of course, the point here is, how can our statewide organization bring folks together and help to facilitate that coordinated management for all of these elements? And this is important because as the tourism industry increases in numbers, as your region becomes more and more attractive to people, there's going to be less about just volume of people. Back in the day, one of our key metrics to determine success, and to some extent it still is heads and beds. Did we increase the number of people that have shown up in our region? And if so, then we succeeded. If not, then we failed. But there's a lot more that value that we should be looking from, and one person's head might bring in a lower value than another person's head, and so and that could be both financial as well as what values and ethos they bring as a traveler. So folks that come to your region, you're excited for them to appreciate your story and to understand your values and who you are as a people. And if they come in and they're not as interested in that, even if they're paying to stay there, it may be less desirable than a different type of a traveler. And that's for you all to decide, of course, who your ideal traveler is. But Sustainable Travel International talks about this, that left unchecked, tourism growth and development can harm the destinations that we love. And so again, that goes back to what, from an outdoor recreation perspective, what Matt was talking about with TRED. I think what some of the small groups talked about in terms of just your character as being a welcoming place, and a place where the lower emphasis on status and more emphasis on friendliness and welcoming and intimate experiences. And so again, this is why I think this is important that you all are investing in this. So then it gets back to Washington Tourism Alliance. What exactly are they in this for? And it's their job, so you could say that they have the board of people that are motivated for them to do this. It was in the legislation, but I think ultimately, how does it advance the cause? So I say that coordination between all regions in the state will make a more compelling portfolio of experiences to attract visitors and direct greater resources towards solving the state's shared challenges. And so again, you all coming together, sharing your ideas, this is going to be useful throughout the state. Similarly, Mike and the team at WTA will come to you and say, here's what we're learning over here. Here's what we're developing here that might be useful for your region. Here are ways that we're all collaborating and working together. So this are just kind of some framework that I think is helpful to set the stage. Now I'd like to share with you two case studies. One of them is just going to be me sharing some verbal information, a little bit of research that I did. It's a relatively new case study for me, but I think I was trying to think about what is a region that is very similar geographically, as well as some of the assets and attraction as the wine country region. And so this is kind of a ground floor for you all. I would love to expand upon this case study going forward. And then the second one is a video from our neighbors to the south, and that'll be more entertaining and possibly more inspiring, because it's real people talking about how they've done tourism development work. So at the end of that, you're going to break into small groups, and I'd love for you to be able to share your impressions on whether these case studies were relevant to you. Were there any ideas that came up during these two case studies that you're excited to pursue? Is there anything, I mean, it's happened that I've shared some of these and people are like, nah, we don't want to do that. And that part of knowing what you don't want is just as important to me, or in my opinion, as knowing what you do want. I did some work up in the Stillaguamish Valley in Washington State, and the mayor of Darrington said to me, what we don't want to be the Medhow Valley. And I thought that was very insightful, because I personally, that's one of my favorite places to go recreate, especially in the winter time. But I don't live there. I'm not in Darrington, and it's exactly what he was doing was right, which is, here's what we don't want to be. We want to be something different than that. And so perfectly acceptable if you hear from these places and say, I don't want to be that. That's still productive, in my opinion. So the first place I would like to talk about is the Okanagan in British Columbia. I'm sure many of you have been there. Hopefully we'll be able to go there again, maybe even as soon as this summer, if we can get our border situation worked out. And I chose this obviously because it is the major wine growing region for British Columbia, but similar to the stories that you all have been sharing, there's so much more than just the wine. I mean, of course, there is a great culinary scene. There's from the cultural history, the indigenous community is very strong in tourism here, and is very important part of the tourism development here, and a very important part of this case study as well, and the findings that I came up with. Outdoor, or as John says, outdoor adventure, which I really appreciate that term. Outdoor adventure is a huge part of what attracts people here, whether it's the mountain biking and the cycling potential, but as was also brought up in your discussion about what unites your region is the water. So here we've got the Lake Asuyus and rivers and all sorts of other. So again, very similar to your region as well, where I think what attracts people here is, of course, the beautiful weather, but it's not just a desert. It's also this amazing water recreation potential and just the beauty and the scenery. So for those of you who haven't been there, this map here gives you an idea of that water that I'm talking about. And one of the major cities here is Kelowna, and that's smack dab in the middle here. And that's where your major airport's going to be if you're going to fly in, or you all could just drive north and hope that you don't get stopped at the border. Not in this map here, cut off from the screen, is Kamloops, which is a major mountain recreation area. So again, like John pointed out, that Mount Rainier is in your guys' backyard, and some of that mountain recreation is, the opportunity to bring, provide a great place for people to sleep and to do evening activities, but then maybe they want to get up into the snow. So I would say that this region shares that with you as well. In 2012, Thompson Okanagan Regional Tourism Strategy was developed, and the idea for this was that it would be a 10-year development process where they would really deep dive into who do we want to be, what's our vision for the future, what are our challenges that we're facing, and how do we want to solve those challenges. And they did a refresh in 2019 and agreed to continue that work for 10 more years. And so as you are probably not strangers to, this development work is a long-term strategy. But at the same time, for it to work, there needs to be some short-term objectives and goals and wins that people can continue to get on board with. So they identified some of the vulnerabilities that they wanted to approach in this study in 2012. So the first of all was the seasonality, and of course we hear this all throughout the northern hemisphere. To be honest, or northern part of the United States and North America is the seasonality component. In this case, they had huge demand in the summertime, but they felt that they had great opportunities for winter recreation. Michael brought up the concept of the golfing that you guys offer in the off season where you are, where it's not soggy and it's not snowy. You can actually do that, or biking or any other types of recreation. So they identified that there's no reason for them to have such seasonality, and that of course is making it challenging for them to grow their industry. They found that they were not differentiating their region well enough from other parts of the world, and even just other parts of British Columbia. And so that was something they needed to develop their storytelling. And on the subject of story, there was an absence of a shared story for the whole region. Everyone is kind of going off in their own directions, and even the different sectors, the wine people over here, the outdoor adventure people over there, we're not necessarily speaking together. And again, that's what's inspiring when I see you all together, is that I believe that that's something that you all are doing well, or at least starting to do well. And there was a lack of cohesive approach to destination management. So again, back to that point about dealing with the challenges that tourism brings, from overcrowding at trailheads to traffic issues to more of those management pieces that are essential for a healthy destination. And they've also recognized that they didn't focus on sustainability. And I think that's obviously the environmental sustainability, but also the cultural sustainability. How are they maintaining and enhancing their cultural aspects that they didn't want to get lost? And that's all levels of culture, but especially the indigenous piece, which is a huge part of the story of this region. And then, of course, the sustainability, making sure that people who are running small businesses can make a living doing it. They came up with a strategy for 2020 that were on these pillars, identifying the iconic. So what is it about this area that was unique, that was special, that they wanted to tap into? Enriching local flavors. That sounds familiar from what you all were just talking about. And I did change the spelling. They would spell it flavors, but I chose for your benefit to interpret that into our language, enriching local flavor. So that's, of course, the culinary piece, but also the food and the local. I don't think they have quite the agriculture. I'm quite confident they don't have the agriculture that your region has, but they do have some of that. And I think that was a key thing they wanted to dwell or bring out. And revealing the story. Again, this idea that this region is connected and has lots of cultural and environmental connectivity, and what is that story? And making that story an authentic part of how they're communicating to the rest of the world, as well as what they're developing. What experiences are they developing? And again, they really identified early on that they were not, that the First Nations in that area were not part of the conversation. And so and there was a great organization in British Columbia called the Indigenous Tourism Association of British Columbia. It's probably in my opinion, a case study in itself in terms of how autonomous tourism development can be built from Indigenous communities. And then that expanded to be the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and lots of great success around that. And so these conversations that were happening in 2012 helped spawn some of that, what ended up being nationwide development. So again, don't assume that what you can do in your region wouldn't have impacts throughout the country. Let's see. So just very briefly, like I said, this is, I just started scratching the surface in terms of the benefits of some of this work, but I think it is important to notice that, and you can't necessarily say, and that's why I put success question mark, because you can't always assume that growth therefore was because of all this hard work. You would hope that that's the case, but I think we all saw tourism increase during 2012 to 2019, but they saw a 48% increase in overnight expenditures. And as you all know, that when people spend the night, they spend a lot more in the region than if they were just passing through. But I think the key that kind of identifies whether this is just because tourism increased overall or whether this work was paying off is the idea that a 2.7% increase in the share of BC tourism. So yes, probably BC tourism grew 45% during that same period. But the point is that this part of British Columbia grew, they took a greater percentage of the tourism to British Columbia. So to me, again, that acknowledges that this work is having an impact, and it pays off for people to work together and get together and have these conversations. So I think there's a lot more to learn from the Okanagan, and I'm sure they would say the same about you all. They would love to. They could probably learn a lot from you all as well. I think you share a lot in common. This is I don't live in either region, so please don't be offended if you don't disagree, but that's my perspective. I'd like to also share another case study here, and hopefully this comes through.
Dan?
And so this, oh yeah, go ahead, Mike, sorry.
I just wanted to add something with the Okanagan, just because I spent a lot of time there. We have a cabin up in that region, and to me, what's different, just from an outsider's perspective in Okanagan, is this sense of identity they put in Okanagan. Like, they really brought themselves together and created their own brand. And you didn't really hear about that as a region. And like Dan said, it was just these Penticton and Vesuvius and Kelowna, but really working together to create that identity, I think was the first and the most major thing they did to successfully make themselves a product.
Thanks, Mike, for calling that out. That's exactly the message I personally took from this research that I did on this area, is and just the power of that opportunity to draw that circle around an area that shares so much, and to be able to elevate that regional and shared story to the world. And then I think that also helps you look inward to what do we want to develop more of that is related to that shared story. And I think similarly, looking to the south now to us, and that's in the state of Oregon, that's a key strategy that they've taken on throughout their regions throughout the state, is to help folks come together and elevate a regional story that is authentic, that people can buy into. And so I'd like to share a territory, again, geographically has some similarities. I think economically it's quite different, but hopefully you find this video from the John Day River Territory in Oregon interesting as well. And when I start this, Mike, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it. And okay.
This is a place that I came from, pour down the street where everyone's waiting.
What is Oregon? What is our Oregon story? What is your community story? My story is about the land that I'm standing on right now. This cattle and hay ranch, this is my story. And I get the incredible pleasure of getting to share that story with visitors from around the world.
I can get tired and walk out my front door and look in 360 degrees and find it inspiring.
I think a lot of young people would like to live here, to come and raise their families and be here, but there's not a lot to offer in terms of employment. Wheat ranching was the big industry that employed people at one point in history.
We had witnessed how the populations were dropping here, and primarily because there's really nothing for these kids to do once they've graduated high school. There's really no challenging jobs that are available to them, and we lose most of them. We have a unique area here. It's on the map, and it's well-traveled, but it's not well-known.
John Day is this very long river. You have these communities that are almost 200 river miles apart, but we feel like we're one big community along the river.
The John Day River is our most valuable resource here. It provides sustenance for the crops, for the cattle, and right now it's providing economic encouragement because of its resource as a tourist attraction. Tourism to me is a positive thing. I think it's really where the biggest growth is going to be in the next 15 to 20 years.
In 2010, Grant, Wheeler, Gillum, and Sherman County tourism-related businesses came together, realizing that there was an incredible opportunity to create the John Day River Territory as a destination. We applied to Travel Oregon to bring in the Rural Tourism Studio so that we could really merge the vision of the 4 counties into one.
It's 4 counties that all run all along the John Day River, and they're pulled together now with different things, with brochures, with advertising, with just keeping each other informed, with getting grants for different projects, a website, all that to promote this area. We all work together for one goal, to put this place on the map.
The John Day River Territory brand is about ambassadorship and really ensuring that our communities are prepared to embrace the visitor. From the moment that they arrive in the John Day River Territory until they leave, you want every part of that to be connected. In February of 2013, Wilson Ranches Retreat was contacted to see if we would be interested in serving as Oregon's first Tough Mudder venue. We knew without hesitation that the economic impact for the John Day River Territory would be absolutely phenomenal because you're showcasing Eastern Oregon. You're able to invite these incredible individuals into your communities for an event weekend, knowing that if they have an amazing experience, they're going to want to return with their families. Tough Mudder is a 10 to 12 mile obstacle course that was developed by the British Special Forces.
The obstacles were from difficult to painful to
excruciating.
Yeah. They had to go through electrical shock, tunnels with mud and water in the bottom of them. There was no competition. All the participants helped each other.
Tough Mudder, Oregon had approximately 5,000 participants and 1,500 spectators.
We were overwhelmed in this restaurant, and that was 25 miles away.
Before this effort, everybody was on their own page. The John Day River Territory is trying to coordinate so that we're all on the same page.
The relationship that the businesses now have, it's not about competition, it's about what we can do to all support each other so that those visitors have an amazing experience and are excited to return. We as Oregonians have such an incredible opportunity to host visitors from around the world into our homes and our lives and what we love. What is your story? What is unique?
I encourage tourism because I think when people come out here, they get a new perspective on how things operate and what impact this small community and the river corridor has on the rest of the state.
Being out here is a feeling that I can't describe because it's so magical. We're here late summer and it's hard to keep the fish off.
It's our joy when people come and see the area because we love to share it, and now we also have an income sharing it.
Offer honest hospitality. Don't put on airs, just be who you are.
It's about creating an environment for memories.
Okay, so that is a couple of different things that hopefully got your brains working a little bit. So once again, if you are like me, that you forget what your assignment was, take a photo here or write it down. And so the idea here is to take some of the ideas that you came up with during the two case studies. You'll be split up in smaller groups through the magic of Mike, and compare the notes. So a couple questions to think about. How does your community compare to the communities presented? And is there anything that you either learned about or just through the course of hearing these two things came up with on your own that you're excited to pursue? So I think we could probably do another 25 minutes for this, if you agree, Mike.
I think 20 minutes is probably.
20 minutes, very good, thank you.
So we'll go 10:50.
Okay, very good.
Where's your family's cabin?
It's up near Grand Forks.
Okay, sure.
Kind of north of Spokane, really. It's actually more east of Okanagan, but I drive through it a lot and I spent some time.
But in the States, in Washington?
Nope.
Or it's in BC?
In BC. Yeah, I'll tell you about it guys later. It's
yeah.
An interesting story. So I'm here, but I'm really just mostly going to be observing. So I'll let you guys.
Well, like Mike, I've spent a lot of time, and I'm in the southwest corner here, knowing the Painted Hills and John Day, but also I used to work in tourism up in Okanagan for 15 years, so I know the region pretty well. And I think what Mike said in his little ad after after what we heard is that the Okanagan has an identity. It always had that identity. It was a valley, it was a lake. People in BC knew the Okanagan. It was the equivalent of the Methow. So I think it benefited from an existing identity. Add to the factor that the John Day is a river. Everyone has a connection to that river. I bring those 2 points up because I think what we might have to work harder at is creating something. And I know wine country is the name, but John Day and Okanagan are 2 very different names, and wine country is also a very different name, Washington wine country. We really, I think, we need to work hard to create that identity. If our identity is just wine, that's very simple. We're Washington wine country, but we don't share the same river. We've got the Yakima and the Columbia, and we've got the Tucci and the Walla Walla. And I don't think Walla Walla is as much water as people think it is. And if you think about it, there's multiple different valleys. And so as we speak of Tri-Cities, Yakima, and Walla Walla as Washington wine country, physically and identity, we are actually kind of different in many ways. And so I'm saying the reason I bring this up is that's the challenge, is to give us a connected thread, and it may be something more ethereal instead of a river or a valley or something. So that was just sort of my observation, is what we don't have as a benefit, something we need to create.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. We definitely grow and produce a lot of wine here, but we're also #1 for asparagus, hops, apples. We really are the center of production here. And we also have a lot of production processing here. So I think if we focused on how fertile we are here and outdoor venues, and the fact that you can hike during the morning and taste beer or wine or distillery at the evening, and then go see a world-renowned a beard winner in Yakima. What was the tamales place that just won in Yakima? We really have some diverse things that you can spend a day doing. You don't have to wine taste, you don't have to beer taste, you can hike, you can cycle, you can paddleboard. There's a lot of that, but it really is where it comes from. We are the production in Washington State.
I think one of the challenges, to build off what you're saying, in our area, so Washington wine country resonates, I think, mostly for people who drink wine, enjoy wine, that sort of thing. But how do you communicate the unique bundle of experiences and things that we're doing in this part of the world. Like I say, we're very agriculturally very strong, outdoor activities very strong, golf, the weather here is very amenable to a whole host of things pretty much year round. I mean, give and take some windstorms or ice storms, whatever might come through. But, so I think, coming up with some way to communicate what that is and being able to use, maybe technology or whatever to be able to identify different groups that are interested in different types of activities in addition to wine tasting or golf or whatever it might be, because to show them those different amenities or the unique bundle of things that they can do once they're here. So even if they're coming in for wine tasting, there's other things they want to do, and most people are looking for high quality craft beverages and not exclusive to wine, right? So whether it be coffee, craft brewing, distilling, they're interested in all those sorts of things, as well as food and other types of activities that we do to fill up our time, to make time for tasting more wine.
I guess I'm playing catch up here. Sorry, I had to step away for a guest, but are we in a small group discussing a topic, specific topic?
Yeah, we were posing the questions. How do we compare to the two destinations or case studies that were shown, and what are we excited to pursue in our region? Coming out of that discussion.
If I could hop in really quick, coming from another tourist area, albeit a very small town, one of the things that we did were work very collaboratively. So we would have the Downtown Business Association, the art centers, we would have everyone at the table discussing how we were going to close the main street, put up stop signs or put up, barriers, and then have a big street dance party or whatever it was, First Friday or whatever it was. One of the things that struck me when I moved to Yakima 6 years ago is the reluctance and kind of, I find Yakima sort of a place, specifically Yakima, is sort of a place that doesn't really know its downtown, doesn't really have its really a congealed feeling of where you are downtown. And so, and it's also, I found it to be very siloed. So one entity wasn't necessarily communicating to the other entity. So what struck me from the last video, part one, is working collaboratively. So working together, pulling each other out of the mud, as it were, and making sure that people are talking to each other to see how everybody can benefit. Because I've heard even from guests, I go to this site and I see this, I go to that site and I see that. But I do think that when people are looking at a region to come and visit, they want to cover all the bases. They want to know what their kids can be doing. They want to know where they're going to be eating, staying, playing, recreating, all the things, drinking, all the things. So I think that working together collaboratively is something that I'm hoping Yakima specifically can improve on. And I think these kinds of things, so thank you very much for these kinds of things. I think that's going to help. I don't have a solution though, sorry.
Well, I think that what you brought up, though, is exactly the opportunity that you have here. And it's really just working together. And this meeting is amazing just because the scope of who's on this call is really cool. There's been other regions where it's been just mainly, chambers and demos and kind of the nonprofit world. But here we really do have a great mix. Deborah, what say you?
It's so refreshing to talk about collaboration and the wine country from Yakima to Walla Walla, because I've been in this industry so long that I lived through the wine commission, and we did it to ourselves, trying to segment individual pieces and then promote that nationally. And when you're in Virginia, you don't necessarily even know where Washington State is, let alone Yakima or Walla Walla or the Tri-Cities. And so, and I think that's still true today. Buck Taft in a previous group talked about the fact that he had no idea what the Tri-Cities was when he moved here 10 years ago. And so I think to work collaboratively, it's a bigger message and we have more resources to use. Quite frankly, I don't care if they fly into Yakima or Tri-Cities or Walla Walla, as long as they're somewhere in the wine country. And then if they have a great experience, they'll come back and look at other parts of it. So I think we've got great stories to tell. It's such a difference from where the industry was 30 years ago. And that we're not segmented anymore, hopefully, and that we're thinking in a broader perspective and helping everybody. And I think we only have to win on this one.
Well, I couldn't agree more with you because I know from a staffing perspective, I definitely staff higher when I know Walla Walla has their spring release, knowing that Seattleites are coming to Walla Walla, some oftentimes via Yakima, and coming from a very small community, we would have actually we had what was called Lyle Wine Weekend. So people would come, wine club members at Syncline would come, grab their branded glass, and then they would just take it to 3 or 4 different wineries in the area. Tiny little town and boutique wineries, to be sure. But I just have tried to start that here in this community, knowing that, the reality is people are asking us on the daily, where can I go next? What do they have at that place? Where do I go, to eat? What do I do there? So the more we do together, I think the better we all will be, to be sure. So, one of the things I've tried to do is start an industry party yearly. So throw a big holiday party, which is vineyards, so Mike Sauer, all the people are here, as well as all the other places, Bill Breakers here. It's just a big party and get together, which is fun, but it's also, I think that's step one. I think that now that we've all had fun and broken bread together, I think that we need to sit down and talk about how we can all get together and promote each other more. So this is a wonderful, wonderful experience here, but I'm wondering how we build on that.
Well, I think that's a really cool idea, and I've heard it from other regions too, where they have this kind of ambassador program where you're bringing, frontline, workers from all the different wineries or restaurants or whatever it is together to learn more about what's happening throughout your region, and so that way they're more informed when, a guest asks them, where should I go next? I'm interested in this type of wine or this type of experience, and they have a ready answer for them because they've gone through these kind of training programs on your area.
I think it would be interesting to gather some market research on those weekends that you talk about, where people are going from Yakima to Walla Walla specifically, to be able to get them to answer questions at each destination, like tasting room, a little three question tasting room questionnaire where we can gather some information about what they enjoyed about their Yakima experience, their Tri-Cities experience, their Walla Walla, somehow gathered some sort of data from them, because they're going to 3 different places for 3 different reasons. Or maybe they're not, maybe they're just on the same road. Maybe that would be the answer we found, but it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about that.
If only there was some university or hospitality, institution in your area that has students available to create those surveys.
Well, I've never really met Mr. Harrington, so I didn't want to be presumptive. So I'll wait till I meet you in person to ask for the market research for that. Thank you, Mike.
Sounds good. I look forward to the conversation.
Well, but Mark, Robert, or Bob, how would you envision that working? I mean, let's take a place like Walla Walla, and creating those surveys. What would your students? How would they put that together, and what could come out of it?
Well, so we probably take a collaborative approach and get feedback from the industry folks in terms of what sort of questions they might want answered, related to that, and then we would develop and pre-test some sort of questionnaire that would be accessible and easy to implement the different locations that we may want to do that, and then determining which wineries may want to be involved. If we want to do it at independent wineries, or if there's some kind of central locations in different regions that would make sense, whatever it might be, and then we could determine whether it makes sense, whether that be through some electronic means, through people's phones, or tablets, or if it's a paper kind of thing, or a card, or whatever it might be. So it'd be different ways that we could do that, and then we could take that information and put it together, and then break it up in different ways, and present that to give feedback in terms of what we found.
I'm really excited to explore that with you, Bob.
Great, me too.
Well, I think that one thing that we can do on a practical level is just build those, especially if it's just a 3-question questionnaire, into a tasting flight or a master list situation. 3 of the things that come up for me just off the cuff are why are you here? I mean, that doesn't sound very welcoming. Why are you here? But what are you here to do? What are you here doing? What are you looking for? What are you looking forward to doing while you're here? And how could we improve upon your experience here? So maybe those are just 3 like off the cuff, but those are 3 questions that I oftentimes ask guests. Oh, I see that you're traveling through town. You're not from Yakima. What brings you to our neck of the woods? And what are you doing next? Is there something I can recommend? And then what would you like to be doing when you're here?
Yeah, there's some great examples of some core questions that I think would be impactful, and understanding that will be helpful as well.
Well, I don't know how much time we have left, but we do have a few questions that we were assigned. If we want to jump on our homework. 3-minute warning. How do we compare to the 2 regions? I think is the first one.
I think one of the questions is, I know for the Yakima region specifically, I would like to see more collaboration and more time spent with all the different entities coming together. I only saw the one in Oregon with the horses.
What are you excited to pursue, and then how does your community compare to the community represented or presented? I lost my screen there. So those are the questions. I think we can answer the question about what we're excited to pursue. I think a questionnaire is something that jumped out pretty quickly, something we'd all like to pursue in some way. I don't know how we compare to those communities. If we've taken the conversation in a different direction, I don't think we necessarily have to answer, but at least I'm trying to be a good student.
Well, I think you did answer it in the beginning where you're talking about, how both those regions were connected by waterways, and you're not connected necessarily by waterways, but you do have some common, themes that throughout your region.
Yeah. And Amy, I think I jotted down what a couple things that you said is that if we do have something in common, is you said, I think you said, we are the source and we're fertile, and so if there's, as far as our identity, wine is the pretty obvious, recognizer, but if there's a way as we tell our story to talk about our fertility, to talk about being the source of so much goodness, as part of wine country. So I think there's something there in our story, because the stories to tell in those 2 different regions are different, because we're trying to weave together 3 totally different regions that are all combined by something that we grow.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was a great conversation, and I will see you guys back in the main room.
All right, thanks.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Love to hear what were some of the conversations. And again, a key part of why I present case studies is not to tell anybody what to do or say this is what's amazing and you should do it too, is more just to kind of help give you some space to come up with your own ideas. And I think there's so many examples that you can pick and choose throughout the world that will help give you tools for what you want to accomplish. So I'm hoping some of that happened by in your small groups as well. So feel free to jump in if you'd like to share what your group. Robert.
Yay, I beat Michael. It's a competition for me, I'm sorry. So we started off with, pretty much what unites us with the other organizations. And we were thinking of John Day in particular on this first one is the US 12 corridor definitely unites us and ties us all together. And it's, perfect for creating a trail like an ale trail or a cultural trail or a wine trail, but it's definitely a path and some ways of how we compared to those areas. And in the John Day area, we have strong marketing efforts that are unique to each of our organizations in the 3 areas, but we haven't yet become collaborative. We keep each other informed as to what's going on, but we've yet to create one unified message or marketing effort and pretty much act as a concierge for an entire region versus just ourselves. And an interesting idea that came up during our conversation is we're perfect if we combine the 3 of us for a week-long visit to the area, 2 nights in each area versus spending 2 nights in one of the 3 areas and then the tourists leaving the area. So we thought it was important to create a marketing plan that promotes the region versus just our individual areas, although that's important too. That's it.
Robert, I thought that was 3 in Walla Walla, 3 in Yakima, maybe 1 in Tri-City.
I used to like you, John Cooper.
There's 2 of us on here, John.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. No, purely joking.
I love that though. I mean, and again, that the potential is huge. And there's, and so in my group, it was talked about just the layers of visitation. So thinking of it as a strategy. So maybe there's someone who's only going to do a few nights in that part of Washington, the entire wine region. But then what do they learn? And they maybe hit some of the kind of the highlights, the more popular elements. But then when they get to those places, they uncover, and I guess I can pick on Walla Walla, the Walla Walla onion. They uncover another layer and they realize, I better come back here. Maybe next time I'll spend, twice as many days, and then maybe I'll spend a week or I'll retire there or whatever. So I think that is part of that strategy, is recognizing that maybe some of those key things that have a bigger marketing budget or that has more Instagram views might be the first entryway, but as long as everyone's on the same team, they recognize that the investment is that the next visit they'll stay longer, get more off the beaten path, and that can be hard. That takes a lot of trust to know that you are all working together. It's not necessarily an easy, but that's what I heard, that you're already in a collaborative region and a welcoming region, and so it seems like it's a natural fit. So good ideas, Robert, and your team. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, great. Thanks, Liz.
And sure. And Dan, I was in your group. So good apropos reference to the onions, because today I passed my first truckload coming off of the farm on the way to the office. So exciting day. So our group resonated most with the Okanagan case study, and Elizabeth mentioned, as we look at kind of like tying through, and one of their vulnerabilities was that cohesive approach. But one of the things that she mentioned was the world-class fly fishing that's available in Yakima. And I think both Buck and I, who were in the group as well, kind of ears perked up of like, oh, we had no idea, we didn't know. So kind of taking a look and saying, you know, then we shifted into kind of what some of those opportunities were listed in the case study, which were, you know, identifying the iconic and taking those inventories of what really is out there and what does really kind of draw in that special niche community that we can build on. And then we can tie in other layers of our community that then help support and create that infrastructure for a fully comprehensive destination or tourist experience. So that was really, really kind of where we netted out, tapping into just those really special and iconic spaces, celebrating them, and really continuing the conversation to really take full inventory of what's available here in the region and sharing that with, you know, our neighbors.
Great, thank you. And that can be exciting as well, because that type of iconic components and those that we spent probably half the session talking about burger joints in the wine country region, and how those small family run often could be hole in the wall, but they've just got so much character. And we, as those who support the tourism and hospitality industries, recognize how important it is for us to support those small businesses and help keep them alive, especially after what they've gone through this past year. Thank you, Liz. Next, who would like to share? Dalen.
In our group, we talked a lot about the John Day video, and we're unique in the fact that we all have a multitude of commonality, or of the same commonalities, from visual arts, performing arts, cultural arts, of course the food and wine and booze industry, and agritourism, and outdoor recreation. You know, Liz said in your group you talked about the fly fishing, and we've got great fly fishing, I think, in all three areas. But you know, and each little DMO represents smaller rural communities. I know in Walla Walla, you know, we represent Waitsburg and Dayton too, and it's how, you know, then we're trying to figure out how to what would be the best way to kind of pull together as the three major cities to help support not only each other but the smaller destinations as well. You know, Robert had mentioned that we don't have a common brand for all three, but we communicate with each other. So we all know what everyone's doing, but we don't really put a lot of emphasis on a week-long itinerary for wine country.
Great ideas. I think sometimes when people hear those words like we should have a common brand or a common story or common whatever, they can get a little nervous that, but what about these other things that we want to talk about and share? And all those are still going to be there, but that common story and that common brand is to elevate a larger geographic region, so that then when they come to you, then just like the state of Washington does the same thing. Washington tourism lines can't tell every nuance of Washington state. I mean, it's probably one of the harder states to do that with. They have to have a story that rises to the surface, but then when people get here, then they can dive deeper. And so I think that's a really key reassurance that we need to give to our communities, just like, hey, we're going to come together and partner in these ways. Your exact unique component may be left out of our initial concept, but just have the trust, again, back to that trust piece, that it's all part of the plan to make sure that your story is part of that component. Really good, Dalen. Thank you. Let's see who else. I'm going to turn it back into gallery view so I can see people raising their hand.
Hey.
Jennifer.
Hey, so we're, again, we have a lot of echoed themes here, but one of the things that came up in our group was, yes, the importance to distinguish ourselves as individual destinations, but then also attracting longer stays, which exposes people to more aspects of the region. We can capture some midweek stays as opposed to just weekends, which of course takes advantage of some of those quieter times. And then, as folks come in, they love different parts of the journey, then they become return visitors. And so I think, we looked at, folks who come, say, for paddleboarding, they can do paddleboarding in mountain lakes, they can do paddleboarding in the rivers around Yakima Valley, and then go on down and continue a paddleboarding journey. But then hopefully we'll be attracting them back for longer stays in individual destinations. So I think all of that is important.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
We didn't nominate a speaker, but I'll jump in. We had an overwhelming support for this type of collaboration initially, so we love to see the group here gathered today. As we were comparing some of the destinations that we learned of, I think one of the things that, of course, it didn't occur to me that the road was what connected us all, as we were talking about what's the thing that connects us. All right, how about the highway? All right, fair enough. But one of the things that we are actually disparate communities here, one thing that connects us and can be part of our identity is that we're the source. We are fertile. We are where things grow. Obviously, wine is what gets people's attention. And so that, as far as developing a common identity, it doesn't have to be about wine. It can be about our fertility and how things grow here. Travel to the source, somehow create our community or create that connection. Additionally, we started a conversation for 5 minutes about somehow developing a questionnaire at the 3 different wine regions for visitors to somehow gather information about what they're looking forward to doing, what we can do better, what are you here to do, and why are you here are some of the questions. So we've got the beginnings of an infrastructure to maybe begin to do some market research throughout our different communities.
Great, yeah, and the fact that like you said, you're the source. The products that are coming out of the wine country region are all over the world, literally. You have a big opportunity for education and inviting people back to see where it comes from, and then having some of that educational infrastructure available, ready for them to receive them. Great ideas. Okay. Who else do we have here? I lost count of how many people we've heard from. Michael?
Yeah, I'd go. It's same as Guy mentioned, we hadn't assigned a speaker, but we had an interesting conversation. Part of where it maybe started out at is why wine, and is wine the appropriate thing? And where we talked about is it is a defining characteristic, but there's more. It's not, this conversation isn't about just promoting wine. It's a major attraction, but this really robust suite of offerings that we have, and what do we do with that thing? And John Cooper mentioned it earlier. I brought it up a couple of times, but between our 2 organizations, we have a 501c3 that's Washington Wine Country. I just put the link if you're not familiar with it. Walla Walla is included in this, so we already have a mechanism that's had some success in the past. And as John mentioned earlier, we're trying to figure out what's the next thing to do with it. I think as an umbrella endeavor to promote the region, we've got this wonderful mechanism. In fact, Mike Moe on a call, I don't remember what it was, a couple of months ago, Mike, but you had mentioned our regional approach. What we'd already done was a kind of a good roadmap for what other regions in the state could do. So we've got this thing. So what do we do with it? And one of the individuals on our conversation, it was talking about regionally. We've got all these different agencies that are working within our communities for community good, and is particularly with the tourism lens on. But if we did this across the region, could we pursue larger grant opportunities? And maybe all of that was funneled through for the promotion through this Washington Wine Country. So we talked a little bit about the 2 case studies, but we spent a good amount of time, like as I mentioned initially, talking about that wine and didn't really resolve with one big plan, but that was kind of the nuts and bolts of what our conversation was.
Yeah, I think that's there's several paths to take in terms of, so for example, one of the areas I do a lot of work in is adventure tourism. and adventure travel. And if you asked 95% of the people that are doing adventure travel, do you do adventure travel? They, or maybe not 95, but a significant chunk of them would not think that what they were doing was adventure, because they think adventure is hanging off a cliff and doing something crazy. But the reality is the adventure travel industry is much broader than most people would think. So is it useful to use that term? And a lot of times it's useful internally, and the marketing value is going to be different depending on how you harness that. And I think those are conversations are really important to have. How much of this is just to connect this shared aspect, and so that then we can come together like this and come up with some marketing campaigns that might attract the fly fishing community, the birding community, the golfing community, the culinary community, and so on. Okay, and also John Cooper pointed out that they've already come up with the term "come to the source," and they've copyrighted it. And if anyone uses it outside of them, that they will sue you. Is that what you said, John?
No. I did want to share that. After Guy's comment, I thought, oh my goodness, yeah, we did some campaigns around that. But that is a very good point. We here in this region are probably one of, if I'm not correct, we're one of the top 15 regions, agricultural regions in the country, if not the world. And with the types of crops that are grown, I know just here in the valley alone, we have over 40 different crops that have multiple sub crops when you look at all the apples, the grapes, etc. But you are right in that regard, Guy. You can come to the source where things are grown, and that can mean so much more than just literal ideas, arts, culture. There's so many things that you come to the source and see what we create.
I like the word fertile only because in the context of tourism, it's going to make you stop and think, because we use it in different parts of our vocabulary or world for other things. But we know what it means. It means farming as much as babies. So I just kind of like that when I heard that. That's a term that makes you think about what you're reading or seeing.
On that note, it's interesting, the breweries, some of the best breweries in the US are coming to the Yakima Valley to do selection for their hops. And every year they take a popular beer that they just made after fresh hop, and their whole marketing campaign is about the grower and their brewery, and they put the grower on the beer and the hop, and they tell the story. This is where your beer is coming from. This is the grower that is growing your hops. And it's such a cool marketing tool for these breweries nationally. And the Yakima Valley is usually highlighted somewhere on that. Founders Brewery does it every year, and they highlight a number of growers, and you can't pay for that marketing. It's just incredible. And their customers are all wanting to see where this product's from. It's just huge.
Amazing. And again, I think back to the fly fishing piece that we had, at least in our small group, we brought this up, is how to know that that's happening and create some of that infrastructure around not just bringing people there, but then having whether it's a tour, whether it's themed lodging, or any of those components, that when they get there, the education continues and it helps them dive further in, and local people are benefiting both by being able to tell their story, but also by the economic aspect as well. And that's where I think it takes some of this behind the scenes work, is to make sure that that's being built in advance of when that marketing. Okay, who else do we have here? Like I said, I lost track of how many I got so involved in your conversation that I've lost track of my facilitating, and I don't know if there are other groups still. Okay, well, I'll take that as we have talked about that. So we have one last section more or less to go through before we wrap up the workshop today. Let me go back to sharing my screen here. is. Okay. So we've talked a lot about what you're trying to build and how this collaboration and working together is something you're excited about. And so I alluded to this at the very beginning, but a workshop I facilitated about 5 years ago. One of my colleagues from the Adventure Travel Trade Association, who happened to live in that community, showed up to the workshops. And so he brought some of his international destination work that they've done to the conversation and presented this idea about what they've observed in terms of a successful destination. And a key part of it is making sure you have equal representation of these three components in your conversation. So, for example, government. Government often is in control of funding. Government is obviously in control of regulation. And so it's important, if you're going to try and develop initiatives and make things happen, that government is there. This came true when I did some work on agritourism in Lewis County. And it turns out that a lot of the agritourism ideas they were thinking of, then somebody brought up, yeah, but we can't do that. It's not allowed. It's against the county regulations to do it, And thankfully, someone had the foresight to invite their county commissioner, and she showed up to all the meetings, and she said, you know, guys, we're redoing our comp plan right now. So all these things that you're saying can't be done because of X, Y, and Z, we can change that. And so having that government person there was essential. But anyone who works for or who is in the government knows they can't do it all by themselves. So having small businesses, or just businesses in general, whether they're large or small, is really important, because a lot of the economic benefits are coming through the businesses that are the for-profit businesses that are able to make things happen. And then, of course, there's the support you get from the nonprofit groups. So that's your DMOs, your chambers of commerce, your environmental and conservation groups, perhaps, wine, all of your culinary groups from the Walla Walla Wine Commission and the state wine entities, and the beer groups, the hop growers groups, and so on. Those are all entities that are advocating on your behalf. They're lobbying on our behalf in some cases. They're educating our consumer, they're educating our industry, and those are key. And so having equal percentage of those groups are there. Also thinking about who's not at the table, who's not here. What from the example from the Okanagan, for example, in 2012, they recognized that despite the incredible cultural resource, as well as the business resource, as well as governments in terms of funding, they were sorely lacking partnerships with First Nations. And so a key priority that they did from day one was to make sure that their entire program, tourism development program, was hand in hand with the First Nations of that community. And sure enough, in all their publications, it's very clearly, thank you to and these are all the groups that signed up early on. And so judging from this meeting today, I would say that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of getting whether it's tribal governments, tribal businesses, or the organizations that are working with tribes. That could be a key aspect. So some of those strategies would be to tap local resources. So which groups are out there working on already, who are already excited and engaged, who want to show up and participate. You've got a lot of local knowledge at all levels, whether it's tourism, culinary, agricultural, cultural. It's really important to build enthusiasm. I put two smiling customers from visiting one of your wineries. That helps build enthusiasm when you build that community and bring people together. And I don't know how much this is an issue in your region, and this is something that I need to learn, but in a lot of parts of tourism places, you sometimes get local people that have a bad impression about what tourism is about. They aren't as familiar with the economic benefits to the area. They sometimes see some of the bigger tourism that is people piling up at trailheads and things like that, or traffic, or they don't often understand tourism. So it's really important to get the community to engage with this tourism development process, as well as get them excited about tourism, because they might be their entrepreneurs that you're lacking. You might realize, oh, that person's excited about tourism. They might be running the business that we realize we don't have in our tourism ecosystem. There's a lot about local ownership and pride. And so I've heard that a lot in this call today, that people are really excited about that when you go wine tasting in your region, that it's not uncommon that you might actually meet the winemaker or the proprietor of the winery. So again, thinking about who's missing, I want, if you'll allow me to encourage you to take something away from this meeting, is to really think about, before the next time you all gather in this format, really looking around and who's not here, and not just send an email, but maybe pick up the phone and call them, or pick up the phone and call them, to make sure that you've got a good cross-reference of people. So finally, I think what Washington Tourism Alliance is excited about is that finally, after years of advocating, and many of you on this call have been those advocates, we're lucky that, or not lucky, but our hard work has paid off, and Washington Tourism Alliance does exist. They do have some resources, and I believe those resources will continue to grow as we continue to advocate. And so now, really at this ground floor, sharing the message with them about what is it that they could do as a statewide entity in partnership with you all that could really add a lot of value to the region. And of course, that story goes both ways. So we'll do our last breakout session, form smaller groups again, and considering some of the regional stories that we've talked about in the very first activity, as well as some of the case studies, a lot of the ideas you came up with, the case studies. What are the gaps? What is preventing you all from forming that region-wide entity, and or it's been formed, but tapping into it and leaning on it more? What are other gaps that would benefit from you all working together? And then brainstorm ways the WTA can support your region to fill those gaps. So whether that's workshops, whether that's grant program, consulting, whatever. So choose one idea that you'd like to share with the group. And as we've learned, you're all very much on the same page, which is very exciting. So maybe come up with a couple backups just in case one of the other groups, like Robert, jumps in ahead of you and says what you wanted to say. So Mike, I'll let you, we're not at closing thoughts yet. Mike, I'll let you break us up into smaller groups. And I think we have time for 25 minutes. This one tends to be a long conversation based upon the last one. So break you up into smaller groups, and look forward to what you have to say when we come back.
Hello there again, Mike.
Hello. So what can WTA do for you? This is my favorite small group exercise.
It's like Santa Claus, Christmas. Hey, I'll kick off some thoughts. I think one of the things that's cool that's already happening, but if we make a pivot of sorts, but these regional conversations, if we really figure out what this unified thing is or how we're best positioning the region, if the WTA continued that conversation but acted as an integrator, So if you were facilitating it and we're having a conversation about, what the true story of wine region is, and we've got this mechanism to market it, if the WTA was facilitating that to recognize synergies that are happening across the other regions in the state so we could amplify it for greater exposure, I think that'd be huge. And then just other thoughts, of course, the grant funding, it was one of the things that came out of the last group I was in, is if we did some things, how could we pursue grants to promote collectively? And then a final thought for WTA, and Mike, maybe this is part of the plan already. I know we've got, the road trips and other things, but maybe there's rotating promotion of the different regions. So, as a promotional campaign for some specific duration, in our case, wine country would get lit up at the appropriate time.
And I'm just here to take notes. We want to hear from you guys.
Well, to be honest, I just want you guys to figure it out, because I'm going to be a direct recipient if we can get more people into the Tri-Cities, the airport in the into the region. I think we're the biggest airport in the region, so we're going to see a direct benefit of that. So whatever we can do to get more people here, I know myself, Walla Walla, and Yakima airports are going to be happy. So let's just figure it out.
You make it sound so simple, Buck.
Exactly.
Hey, Buck, what kind of control does the airport have, or influence could they provide? So let's say the WTA, as they're working with travel writers or travel trade, but we need to get them to wine country. Is there an assist from the airports to for funding anything that would just ease the burden of getting people here? We're talking about a small group of people.
Airports have very strict policies on how they can use their revenue based on the FAA, and it's in our grant assurances. We receive grants every year. And in that, we sign away basically sign with blood saying we will not do this, do this, do this. Destination marketing is one of those things that we cannot do. We can fund airports and say, we are this airport, but we can't fund saying, come. It's just a weird dynamic. Like whenever we do marketing, unless it's for a new route, we have to say we have American, Alaska, Delta, United, and we go to all these places. We can't specifically, target that unless it's a new route. That's the only time we can get into that. And it's kind of the same with economic development. We can't really get involved in economic development. Hey, let's give the city some money to get this new company. We can't do that. So we can get creative, and there's things we can maybe do. We just it's a fine line on what we can and can't do. I think the reason is the FAA does that to keep, a lot of times airports are pretty profitable cost centers for cities and counties, and it keeps the city and county out of the airport, and they don't want us to divert revenue to the city. They want it to stay focused on aviation. So I think that's why they set those rules in place.
Kyle, Jennifer?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering if the state produces any materials that are region focused that we could have some input in, whether that is like, I've heard some great ideas about golf guides. I think you could take a ton of activities and either put them into a regional magazine or travel guide, or have a handful of different brochures, because we kind of serve as a visitor center here, and people walk in and they want everything under the sun, and they don't want it just for Walla Walla. If they're driving through, they want information for Spokane and Yakima and Tri-Cities and Seattle. And so we don't have a whole lot of that out of region info, but having something that's more cohesive, if we're trying to get people to go between Yakima and Walla Walla, if we could have those activities broken up into pamphlets, brochures, or even something similar to what the app was that was described, Tread, where instead of me having to give you paper, I could point you to a website and say everything is located there. We have a really great local group called Outside Walla Walla, and they have gone through and found all sorts of outdoor recreation opportunities. So you can go to their website and pick fishing and how many miles away you want to get from Walla Walla, and it gives you all of the options right there. So digital brochures and pamphlets would be good, but something that would promote that circulation between our cities along the freeway.
That's very interesting. You know, one thing that we don't have in Washington that they do have in Oregon are, you know, regional DMOs. So there's a layer of DMOs that we don't have that they have. So they have the state, they have the regional, and then they have the city DMOs. And so each of their regions has their own, you know, DMO. And obviously we're not quite there yet, but you guys are probably the closest as far as, you know, creating that website. And I think you really have opportunities to, you know, to grow that idea into, you know, maybe a regional guide or a regional, you know, website that focuses on wine, sure, but also all the other opportunities they have available.
And then as a hotelier, once you have that kind of information, it's easier for us to share that with our guests. And, you know, having a hotel in Walla Walla and in Yakima, I love the idea of keeping them in our areas and exploring both areas. So, you know, the more information, the more we can share. And that's how, you know, just these meetings is helping me, because I'm in Oregon and Washington. So being able to connect more with some of these other businesses in this area and learn more about it is been wonderful. I'm so glad that I attended.
Yeah, me too. Jennifer, where's your property in Oregon?
We have 6. So we're headquartered in Lake Oswego, but we have Oregon. Mostly our focus is on the Oregon coast. So that's kind of the opposite. So we have Astoria, 2 in Seaside, Lincoln City, Newport, and then outside of Portland. And then we have, and then Washington, it's Moses Lake and Ellensburg outside of Yakima and Walla Walla. So to be able to share that with all of our properties on, you know, the special thing, you know, wine is huge.
I think you have really good perspective then, being in Oregon, and especially along the Oregon coast, where they have kind of a very defined region where they've done a lot of work. What would you say is missing here in Washington that you've seen, you know, in Oregon, because they have Travel Oregon that has a much larger budget than we do, and you have that regional DMO. Like what can we bring here in Washington that you've had in Oregon?
You know, probably, you know, information, more reach, you know, like you talked about possibly having a digital brochure or something more regionally on all the things there is to offer, something tangible that we could share, email, pass on, instead of just, you know, I would have to share information on all these different places. But if we had that one thing, that one common thing that we could share, like you were saying, regionally in Oregon, our regional partners do have that. We have a lot of regional things that we can share with people that I see that is just growth for Washington.
Mike, I know we've got Band Wango, but has there been any talk about a state app? This is kind of going back to what Kyle mentioned, but MPS is a great example. So the MPS app has all of the park's sites on it, but then you can go right to our park specific site. So, you know, if it looked like something similar for Washington State, it's got, you know, the state message, but then it's got all the regions, and then you can dig into it and you see the specific assets from Yakima to Walla Walla and Tri-Cities in between.
I mean, we don't have that yet. I mean, we have our Experience WOW website, which is pretty old and it needs to be updated. And I think as we do update that website, there'll be much more storytelling and much more, you know, the idea will be to inspire people, obviously, to travel, but then also, you know, put them into where they need to go. You know, we have so many assets out there right now that, you know, people have put a lot of work into, and it's just really getting people the information they need and making sure they're going where we're going. But the fact is that we are still, you know, missing that regional aspect. So that's really about what these meetings are about, is to create that identity, to uncover the story that you're talking about, Michael, and then try to build, something tangible, like you said, Jennifer.
Storytelling is huge. I know we really enjoyed the John Day video. And then I know in Oregon, they always have the grants getaways. Like they work alongside with Travel Oregon, and he's traveling all over, and he's always hitting those little hidden gems that kind of highlights a little area. And I use those all the time if any of our properties are in that area, just to promote or talk about things that people might not really know. So I think more storytelling too, or the ability to share things that make this area really unique, entices more travel too.
Yeah, and that's something that we're doing right now. I think Michelle touched on it. Creating those digital assets, and so whether it's photography, whether it's videos, we're coming to wine country this fall with a videographer, with drone pilots, photographers, really to try to create those assets. And then it's just putting the assets together into a something that can be shared. And I think that's a really good point.
This is the quietest one I've been on. You could tell we've had a long session.
Long session. Michael, you always have something to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was just tapping out kind of just some of the things I threw out, simply because I've got a quarterly board member CEO meeting that I'm going to have to leave for in minutes. So I apologize, but yeah, that's tough, Mike. I think, I do think it's a good position for the WTA to be as an integrator and take this, the next step. And I know you're already planning on doing it, but just because we could, tap into so much more, I think, or have a better understanding of what's working, if another region's pulled something together that works, and how do we repurpose that for our benefit and vice versa. I think that'd be a huge thing.
What about you've talked about agritourism a little bit throughout your region. You talked about how you're the source and you're the makers. What is there a unified effort around sharing that agritourism story?
Not that I've seen. I think we all independently market it pretty well, but yeah, I don't think we've ever done anything, up the valley or down to Walla Walla that I've seen. That's a great thought.
I mean, do you have culinary trails, or do you have?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing that we were working on, this is pre-COVID, was actually this wine trail. So we've got this website and this endeavor, but it was one of the conversations we were having to mapping this thing out a little bit different. I mean, literally mapping it out, your wine experience. But that certainly could happen with agritourism and farmers markets, or all the points. Festivals, would be included in that, because there's a lot of them surrounding that.
What are some of the educational opportunities in your region that you might be missing? Like, how can we bring experts in to help grow your product?
You can fly him into the Tri-Cities Airport.
That's so awesome.
Buck, you were in the right position. You focused.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard, especially when you're talking about agritourism, to get producers to understand the tourism aspect of it. They want to grow a product and sell a product, and it's hard for them to visualize turning that into, I could have people on my property, educating them about how we harvest, and then pointing them to where my product goes so that they can buy it, or they can use it in recipes at home, or they can eat it in a restaurant. We struggle educating farmers on that issue because it's a new mindset for them. The folks who are involved at the farmers market, they're the ones who they're catching on a little bit. They kind of understand, oh, I'm selling this to people outside of the area. It's not just people who are in Walla Walla or in College Place that are coming to the Walla Walla and College Place farmers market. but it's the larger production folks that we're missing the boat on.
Well, one thing I want to tell you that's a really good intro is that next Monday, I'll talk about this with the whole group. Next Monday from noon to 1:30, we have an agritourism webinar with agritourism experts coming from the University of Vermont and from Washington State University. And so I would encourage you to try to bring all the producers that you know to it's a free webinar. And like I said, I'll give the information out here later in the presentation. But next Monday from noon to 1:30, we're going to have a free webinar with experts on how to grow that agritourism product. And I think your region, specifically like positioned to take advantage of that idea.
That's cool. Hey, Mike, and I'm going to have to jump off, all apologies, but I think you talked about education. Two thoughts for you. One of them really taps into what Jennifer was saying. It's the power of storytelling, and maybe it was community conversations. What does that look like? How do you do that and get some people that are really good at that? And this really ties into my second thought, is it's how to leverage social media, because we think everybody uses it and they know how to do it, but we see business owners don't know how to do it well. And I think we could tie storytelling into that. And how do you really do that and activate your customers to share your story and drive user-generated content?
Cool.
Cool. Thanks all. Sorry for having to skip.
That's okay. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, how to tell a story and how to leverage social media. I think those are really good educational opportunities. Are there other things that are missing as far as marketing or as far as, developing tourism product in the area that we could bring experts in to help with that process?
I don't know about bringing the experts in, but I do know that it's always nice to have a bank of video and photography that's available as we're trying to develop more info. Just cutting out a huge expense. So if there was a bank of available images that span our entire region, that would be really helpful. Hot air balloons and grapes on the vine, whatever it is that could easily fit into a digital ad or a printed ad.
Well, we do have those photos available for you.
Oh, great.
I don't know if you were on when our director of marketing was on talking about the asset library that we're growing, but I can put here in the chat for you that database, and you can make yourself an account, and then you have to ask permission each time you use them, but as long as you are promoting tourism in your area, it's available to you. So,
good. And that, we kind of work to support Visit and their efforts, so it's not, we're not promoting tourism in a huge way, but we're the spot that tourists come to get that info. So I'm just probably a little out of the loop on what assets they have available.
Yeah, well, I've thrown that into the chat there. I think I'm going to make a 2-minute warning for people. Okay, so who would like to be the spokesperson for this group then? Now that Michael's gone. Jennifer.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have not been taking notes. I just anticipated
I know I didn't.
I anticipated it would be Michael, and then he had to bail on us.
Well, I can give you the notes that I have. What can the WTA do for you? Continue the conversation around regional identity and the true story of wine country, and then amplify that story. Possibly rotate, promote, and you don't have to write down every single one of these, but pick a couple. Doing rotating promotions of each of the regions. Bring more people, figure it out. Produce state materials that are regionally focused, perhaps create a regional guide or a digital asset. Create those tangible regional resources that they have in Oregon. Create assets that can be used. Storytelling is super important. And then try to answer the question on how to capitalize on the agritourism story that you have in your region. Like, how do we educate people around agritourism about the importance that it could have for your area? And then the educational opportunities, how to tell the story, how to leverage social media. So those are the notes that I've taken from this session.
So are you doing this, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Oh, you're wonderful. I was trying to write fast and I'm like, I don't even know if I can read my handwriting when I was writing that fast.
Sorry, I was going too fast there.
No, it's all great stuff.
Well, thank you for being with us, and thank you for sticking through the 4 hours. I know it's a long meeting, but I think it's really been a positive experience so far.
No, I'm so glad I joined.
All right,
This is great. Thank you.
We'll see you back in the main room.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Welcome back. This time, Robert, you can't go first.
I'm not even allowed to talk this time, according to my group.
All right, very good. I appreciate your initiative, though, everybody. That's what Mike and I were saying offline, was just that this group's doing such a great job because people are so motivated to participate. That's such a, it means we got a good group, that's for sure. Yeah. All right, who would like to go first and share what came out of their group? Guy?
Sure, thanks. I'll just kind of read through the questions as quickly as possible. What are some of the gaps? And I think we just came down to, in terms of our identity, is answering those questions. What else is there to do that we all get, whether it's hiking, fishing, cycling? So that's the gaps that we're looking to fill out the identity of wine country, that it's more than just wine. I think that's a conversation we've had before. So there's many other things to do. And as we brainstorm some different ideas, and how WTA can support, highly regarded was the video and photo asset library. So I think that's a great start that I think everyone will benefit. Funding, grants, etc. That I think goes without saying that's a huge benefit right now in the current economy. The market research, if there's a way to gather information throughout the entire region, I think is something that was interesting. And then some activities, and I think this is now where I'll begin to answer both of the questions. We had a nice conversation about some different, what else is there to do, activities that could be held progressively throughout the region or seasonally throughout the region, if that makes sense. Think about we've had an art fair. I brought up an art fair for Walla Walla. I'm like, well, why not bring up a progressive art fair from Yakima to the Tri-Cities to Walla Walla was an idea that was brought up. A way to essentially create a number of similar events throughout the entire region to bring people back and forth.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you.
That's all right. It won't be the last time. I don't know where I left off. Hi, I'm Guy from Walla Walla. So we just were talking about one of the things that was very interesting as far as support from WTA was the sponsorship of we called it a progressive or seasonal event, a wine country fishing derby, where you go fishing in all three regions. A wine country outdoor music festival where there's a sequence of music festivals throughout the region. So something in that, and we had fishing derby, a century bike ride, 62-mile bike ride is something we talked about, and some sort of sponsorship from the WTA in a progressive or seasonal event where there's something going on throughout the summer that helps people travel to all three and create that identity that there's great fishing in both regions.
Awesome. So basically identifying those elements that you all have in common and then coming up with a way to showcase that and connect. I love that you said a century bike ride and then you were talking about a metric century because then you said 62 miles. So
right, exactly.
That didn't go, I caught that, Guy. Testing my metric abilities.
Right.
Okay, great ideas. Who'd like to go next? Robert.
All right, I thought I'd better jump in here before all the good ideas are gone, but we talked about similar things, but mainly kind of in terms of what the WTA could do to help facilitate, connection of our folks and also connecting information in terms of what's going on in the region. We talked about whether that be, training programs and enhancing staff knowledge so that they can be better ambassadors or some sort of ambassador program. And then also bringing other people into the process, whether it be, I think Dan gave the example of gas station attendants, but other folks in retail and different things like that aren't directly associated with tourism hospitality, make sure they know what's going on and are part of the process. And then also to facilitate allowing guests to dig here through different layers that they go into based on what they're interested in to make sure they get the information they're looking for and it fits with their interests and that sort of thing. Also facilitating grants for promotion or different aspects of promoting the region and developing it. And then organizing, helping us to organize based on information that's derived from different parts of the region and different members and leaders in the region, and then creating some subgroups to work on different aspects to move it forward, whether it be a food trail or a brewery trail or whatever it might be. Also looking at, we have a very diverse group of visitors to the area, whether it be looking for high touch kind of concierge service to lead them through the process and facilitate that, or more individualized where they can look at that individually and that sort of thing. So that's mainly what I remember we came up with.
Very detailed and organized this group is. I'm very impressed so far. And Mike is going to be excited that this is being recorded.
I'm writing notes as fast as I can.
Yes. All right. Who else would like to share?
I'll go next.
Please.
So our group, when we talked about what the gaps were, it was really expanding the voices at the table. We touched on that as a large group, but our subgroup really talked about how do we get the people participating, more diversity, and how inviting and engaging those people does take that extra effort. They may have been invited to be at the table today, but if you don't do the personal phone call and really take them by the hand, which is what's necessary, we're probably going to keep the little squares looking exactly the way they do now. So that was one of the gaps. The other was, we talk about creative districts and they're almost there, but there still is a little bit of a gap in the formation of them and strengthening those throughout the region. So that was an area that we thought perhaps it was a gap. And then what family activities, we have to figure out a way to make the wine destination have opportunities for families as well. And then what can WTA do? Continuing to advocate for funding and support as it relates to educating legislators so that there's funding for the film office and we can continue to expand on the marketing ideas that we're talking about here. When we get this to the next level, how do we market what comes out of here? And we will need WTA to help educate our legislators so that we're financially supported. They've done a great job on that, but that's one thing they can continue to do. And then facilitating more sessions like this, perhaps not monthly or quarterly, but a couple times a year that we found value in what we did here today. And so we'd like to see WTA support more of this. And members of my group, did I miss anything? Diane, did you want to add anything? I think that's it for our group then.
Yeah, I think you covered it all. Side note though, just listening to comments and knowing that the topics in front of the legislature going forward, because that's also part of my work, WTA and our region, if we could really tell the stories of people, the depth of the cultures that are already here, and really the fact that I think what the hospitality and tourism provides is equity and access. So we should focus on those pieces going forward, because then all boats rise and that creates the wealth. And that's why the point on creative districts, STEM, STEAM, it's critically important going forward for education. And I think this region has a huge opportunity to be a part of that. Thank you.
Great feedback. And I know, Kim, to your point earlier about just doing more regular programming that like this, maybe not as long, but that's something that's come up in every single meeting like this. And so that's exciting, I think, for Mike to put words in his mouth, but I think that's exciting for him as well, because this is his job to bring folks together. And the fact that this wasn't super painful and that it was beneficial, I think will make it easier to make it happen more frequently. Great, thank you for that. And Diane, real quick, is that a submarine in your image? What is that thing behind you?
This is part of our STEM tourism. This is a USS Triton submarine sail with the conning tower underneath. It is the end of the Manhattan National Park tour. It's our way to tell fourth graders and others about how we implemented basically the science of this region in the period of the Cold War. And what's our big claim to fame is the Port of Benton. Nothing that exciting except that we offload the compartments that come from the Bremerton shipyard. They take them out and store it at the dump site out at Hanford so that the Russian satellites can go over and make sure that we're decommissioning our submarines.
Interesting.
Isn't that fun?
It is. And well, I'm just, it was just, it looked like a submarine to me,
more
but
to come, because there's a book and a movie made about it. It's the first submarine that actually followed Magellan's path. They never came up the entire period of time, and they literally did make a book and a movie about it.
Wow.
So Steve, there's exciting stuff happening in North Richland that's not just Hanford related.
aren't you happy that I'm a ringer here, apparently, and pay attention to people's background images?
Well, and when we're not in a pandemic, you can actually crawl inside of it. It's open to the public. It's very cool.
Wow. Okay, so sorry about that. I just couldn't help myself to ask that question. Who else would like to share? I think our group has kind of winnowed down a little bit as the time went on, but I think we still have a couple more groups. Dalen,
Yeah.
you're about to say something?
Yeah, I'll go if that's okay. You know, our group talked in gaps mostly about awareness, specifically on arts and history. All three destinations do a really good job at promoting, you know, the wine and culinary scene, but in arts, especially arts, a lot of the people that appreciate the arts appreciate the fine wine and the fine culinary, and it kind of gets left in the shadow of the food and wine scene. So we thought that was a gap that we could all work on. And as far as WTA, we thought of facilitating meetings like this as well, with statewide arts groups and DMOs to kind of just bring awareness to both the DMO world, the state DMO world, and for the other arts groups, Seattle Arts Commission to find out what Walla Walla's Arts Commission is doing, and that kind of thing, so they can all work together cohesively.
Great. Love that working together. That's why I like the travel industry, to be honest with you. Most of the places I've gone where destinations have been successful is because people were excited to work together. And what a great message to teach our young people about. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody who's been sitting? Oh, yeah, Kyle. Very good. I was actually looking at you when I was thinking to myself, who's been sitting quietly and who I haven't picked on? And you must have felt it. So please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, Michael was part of our group and we all just assumed he was going to be the spokesperson. And right at the end, he said he had to bail for another meeting. So I'm filling in for Michael in a way there. We talked a lot about the importance of storytelling that was really brought out in that John Day video, that we would like to have more of that within our region, have a regional story that we can tell, which brings about a more regional identity also. We talked about maybe the state providing some regional rotation on how they market the different areas so that we would be featured some of that time as well. Having some regional materials so that when someone comes here to our chamber to get information, I have some materials that I can provide that will help keep people in our region. So whether they're physical materials or digital, an all-inclusive guide or based on activities, like we talked about golf before, wine tasting is an obvious one, hiking, fishing, camping, all kind of goes together. Another gap that we have realized is the agritourism. It's there. We have producers, we have wonderful products that are grown throughout the region, but the producers don't understand how to get involved. And a lot of them, especially the larger ones, don't really see it as a way to promote their commodity or their farm in general. Mike brought up that there's a webinar on Monday that we can invite growers to participate in, but just helping them understand that they're part of that. The wine industry gets it, but our grain growers, our onion growers, they don't get it, but we're famous for those things. And so if people know that and they come here, we get calls, people want to go out and see crops being harvested. And if we have farms and people who are willing to do that, it would really, really increase that and help us diversify the reasons people are coming to our region.
Kyle, can I just jump in real quick on that point? I think one thing that could be just to brainstorm is that agritourism can be challenging for producers because they're producers, not travel people necessarily. And what would be interesting is if producers got together and kind of funded the creation of a agritourism company that was their job, to work with the producers to develop what the producers wanted to share, but then this company would bring people to the site, they would facilitate it, and so the producers could do what they do, which is make world-class food and products, and then this tour company could be the kind of the ambassadors for that. Because I agree, there's so much opportunity to teach people about where their food comes from and just have that interactive experience. But it is hard. I think if I were a farmer, it'd be hard for me to dedicate time during my busy season to do that work.
Yeah, for sure. I guess just the other things that we talked about were, it goes along with storytelling and how to leverage that through our marketing efforts and social media especially.
Excellent.
Can I pick up on something that you and Kyle both mentioned? And again, going to the story part, I like your idea, but I'll tell you, the producers, it's just step back. Even telling the story of agriculture at the state level and to legislatures is hard. I'd actually say that we need the potato commissions and the hop commissions to be connected with DMOs. We need them to be telling us these stories, because it's in talking to those associations and working with WSU as the land grant university to access them. Quite honestly, that is a great opportunity, because you get key stories out of that. You find the producers that are willing to provide that access to the tour that you're talking about, but they're not in a place they can. I get asked, what's the value of onions? What's the value of asparagus? Did you know that Washington State does spearmint? We're one of the leading spearmint exporters. but then they want me to quantify that with data. I don't know, because I don't even know who to talk to, and neither do the legislators. And so that's an opportunity and a story that could be told that ties into everything that we've been talking about today. And I really do believe it's the trade associations and working with the university that could provide that connection that ultimately could get to the tourism side of it and the tour company.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, and Kyle briefly touched on it before we go, is that we do have an agritourism webinar next Monday from noon to 1:30. We're bringing in experts from the University of Vermont. We also have somebody from the Washington State University Extension. We have a couple of local farmers and a restaurant who work together in the agritourism product. We have Christy Chrysler from Finn River who will be there. And I really hope that you guys, if you could join yourselves, or if you know people out there who want to learn more about agritourism, it'll be a really good introduction to agritourism and helping those that exist who have agritourism product take it to the next level. I put that invite in the chat, so please take a look at that if you are interested, because we love to have you there.
And back to the silver linings of the pandemic is that I think I know this because my wife works for the Department of Agriculture, but there has been a lightning rod for funding to help support especially smaller producers, and agritourism is a great way to do that. And so I think that there's great opportunity, Diane, for what you talked about in terms of connecting the different commissions, as well as what the Department of Agriculture did to help Mike and WTA put on this workshop. I think there's a lot of cross-pollination going on, again, in the interest of survival, which was what had to happen for all of our industries last year. And I think we're going to continue to learn and grow from that. But I love your ideas about the commissions as well. I just realized that as my alarm went off, we're at the top of the hour, and you've been here for 4 hours with us, working really hard and having these amazing conversations that inspire me, and I think inspire you all as well. I want to respect the fact that we are at that time, and I'd like to first give the closing thoughts to Mike, since he helped organize this with his team at the WTA, and then just kind of give us some next steps and parting thoughts.
Yeah, first of all, thank you all so much. It's amazing when you think about a 4-hour meeting and you're like, oh boy, that's a long time. And then you get to noon, you're like, oh my gosh, we still have more to say. But it's been fantastic, a really positive experience, and a really great first step in the destination development program. Like I mentioned, this is just only the beginning. We will have those regional conversations to come, and we hope that you look at his little triangle and think about who's not here yet and bring them into the conversation, because we really, it's been an amazing cross section of your industry and your region, but I think there's still other people we can bring in and engage in this conversation. And so much to come, and I will be sending out a follow-up email the next couple of days with a link to the video of this recording. So if you missed parts, or if you know people who wanted to come but couldn't make it, please make sure they have it. And then and hopefully join us next Monday for the agritourism conversation. And thank you again.
Great, thanks everybody. Feel free to jump in with last. I just wanted to respect that we were already at time, but I think if you wanted to jump in with your closing thoughts as well, for those who want to reach out and give me some advice or feedback, or complain about anything that I've compared you to British Columbia or something, feel free to do that through my email address here, or you can check out the tourism related things that I'm doing on Twitter as well. So again, thank you so much. Thanks, Mike, for inviting me to be a part of this. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
All right, thanks everybody.